do the little announcement. It's going to destroy the server every time we do an add everyone.
It's been pretty stable the past few times. Don't jinx it.
Oh yeah. I'm just constantly. And sending it out. Something went wrong. I don't know if that published or went out to everyone. See if people start coming up. All right, that's the normal thing.
Yeah.
everyone's like making dog photos over and over again, and then the little thing comes up and everyone joins. It's like a cowbell ringing the cowbell. I don't like it's not about no. Everyone's what's a more nice metaphor? I don't like
Ice cream truck.
Ice cream truck. There we go. MidJourney ice cream truck. I love that. All right, getting everybody up. When we get a little bit over 1,000, I think we'll probably start. That's probably usually what we get to. Open up the shared voice channel. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, yeah, I just connected. Everyone can hear me now. Cool. All right, so let's see. This is this is our weekly MidJourney office hours. We started off talking about what we've been thinking about lately, what we're working on, some stuff that might be upcoming, and then we just take questions for as long as I can until basically body gives out. So usually that's a few hours. Let's get started. I would say there's sort of two major areas that we're thinking about right now. One has been a lot of new infrastructure, and kind of they call it technical debt. Like you can go into money debt, but you can also go into technical debt. What that means is that you made a lot of technical decisions that made it easy to make progress, and but you're kind of taking on debt that you're going to have to fix things later. Like, oh man, I'm going to have to fix that later. And so we've been doing a lot of technical debt, and mainly what we've been doing is we've been pulling out basically we're going to be having a new web front end where you can make images on the website. We also have like new bots that are coming besides just the MidJourney bot. And we also have like an API thing that will come one day too. And in order to do those things, we have to take all of the code that handles accounts and jobs, and we have to pull it outside of all of the systems so that there's sort of like a universal API layer for MidJourney and a universal billing layer. And so basically, we have been pulling out all the code from the bot and all the code from the website and all the code for the billing. And we're trying to basically pull them into these sort of new systems that can be shared between all the different upcoming MidJourney services. And so I think 2 or 3 days ago, we tried to deploy a new version of the bot that basically used the universal API layer. And we then found that there was a lot of edge cases. Before we did this, we did test it for a while with a bunch of moderators and guides. But then when we pushed it to the whole server, we found like, I don't know, 15, 20 edge cases. And then our engineers like basically worked for like 15, 20 hours trying to fix them all. But eventually we kind of said, everyone get some sleep and we'll come back. And then over the next 2 days, I think they seem to have gotten almost all the remaining things. There might be like 2 left. I'm not sure, but we're either through it or we're close to getting through it. And so if anybody sees any bugs, let us know. And I'm sorry about any downtime that people might have had for a day or two, but basically, in order to have an infrastructure that can support all of the new product stuff, we have to basically we either have to pull the infrastructure out of the bot and move the bot to the new infrastructure, or we have to just say no more bot updates, right? Because if we want to update this bot, we have to update it with the same backend that we're updating everything else with. And so basically, in order to basically keep the bot alive while also developing like web stuff, in order to I'll move my microphone a little closer. In order to basically keep everything alive, while in order to keep the bots alive while also having new bots, while also having websites, while also doing other things, we basically have to pull everything out and unify it. And so that's been a big focus, and it's just about done now. And I'd say that's a victory. Let's see. So there's that. That's been a big thing. And again, sorry everyone for kind of had to go through a little bit of instability. I would say that though, just to set expectations, like anybody on this service should expect 1 to 2 days of instability a month minimum, because we do want to make the service better. And sometimes that means moving to big systems. And if you're looking for something that doesn't get better, then you probably should find another service. I don't mean that in that way, but like basically anything so we would try to tell people in the future. I think we did this time. We said we were going to do it. But I think it took longer to fix the bugs than we thought. So something to keep in mind. I would say this has been probably the most stable month that MidJourney's ever had. Previous months we had a lot more. We had sometimes we'd have a week of problems, but I'm hoping that we don't have anything that bad in the future. Yeah, so there's that. And then we're working on the new web front ends to basically check out basically there's going to be a web creation system. That'll be nice. And there's going to be a lot of new web features in general that are, I don't want to give too many hints, but there'll be a lot of really cool features that help, I think, enhance the community and highlight the cool images and help you find the images that you like. And basically do a lot of cool things. I think one of the challenges is we're probably like we are the biggest server on Discord now. So we're kind of in this unusual area where like we literally like there's never been a community this large. So we're like, I think we want to make sure that it feels like there's still space to grow. So like to me at times the Discord almost feels like a little too big for Discord. Like it's a little too big. There's too much going on. And so I think but we do want MidJourney to be 10 times bigger in the future. And so there's a question of like, how do we sort of build out something that allows MidJourney to be 10 times bigger without it just feeling totally overwhelming, like kind of have more space basically. So how do we have more space and have it still feel good, but still be bigger? So I think the web is going to be like the main way that we can innovate there and try to do things that are really unusual that might give us more space for like another 5 or 10 million people. But that said, like we are going to be doing a bunch of cool things like on Discord specifically very soon. And there's going to be a lot of great Discord stuff upcoming. I want to say though, like it seems to be more likely that Discord is going to be a place for like new things that people are trying or smaller community, like the smaller community servers is great. Like there's hundreds of thousands of small MidJourney community servers. I think the challenge is going to be like if we want the MidJourney like central hub to be like 30 million people, can that even happen on Discord? Maybe not. And like how do we what does that 30 million hub look like? It probably is something on the web. And so trying to kind of make sure that that's okay is going to be a thing. But I think there'll be a lot of really cool stuff. And I also think that like it's going to be hard to beat Discord in terms of like creating a little private space for you and your friends. I think and we're going to have, I think, a bunch of cool kind of small server specific stuff in the future. And yeah. So that's all meant to be very positive. So really cool web stuff coming and really cool Discord stuff coming. But part of the challenge, the thing that actually makes us think about it is just this sort of like fear that we want to be bigger, but we don't want it to feel too crowded. And we want to be able to make it feel like homey still, you know? And so that's a design challenge that's pretty significant. Let's see. The next biggest thing I've been thinking about are just the new models. And there are two models we were thinking of releasing, sort of a fast model and a good model. And the fast model looks a lot like the test and test P model, but it's just way faster. And you can do bigger aspect ratios. We think we might not actually release it though, because we might just go straight to the better model. Which is also coming in pretty soon. And so I would say that like we have a pretty good idea of what this like fast model looks like. It looks pretty similar to test and test B, but it's much faster and you can do bigger batches and it does bigger aspect ratios. But the it's not like it's definitely better. But it's not as exciting as what I would like it to be. So I think that whereas there's a newer model that like looks just a lot better, I think, from our current tests. And so we're leaning towards just trying to focus on releasing the giant supermodel as soon as we can. So we're currently, I would say, all hands on deck trying to release the sort of the supermodel because we're hoping that if we can do like the supermodel, that could just be like a V4 and it could be the new default. And one of our goals is to have a new default model. So right now we're in a really, I would say, unpleasant and unintentional position of basically having two versions or even three versions at once, like the test version, the test P version, the V3 version. There's like remaster, there's like there's 3 upscales, there's an upscale max. And I think that that's probably not a sustainable way for us to grow. We have to try to get everybody on one major version next, I think, because we just can't, like right now we have, to give you some sense of how it feels for us, like we have more image algorithms right now than engineers potentially. Like we have V1, V2, V3, HD, upsample, uplight, max upscale, test P, remaster. We have the different variations. Like we have more models than engineers. And so, yeah, so I think it's important for us to try to focus to get the community like on more one model than on like 100 models. Because it makes it a lot easier for us to actually like focus on. It's much easier for us to focus on one thing getting better than it is to focus on the million different crevices that people could fall into. And so I think the goal is right now to try to have one really good model that's really versatile and just really, really special and beautiful and like strong. And if we can do that, then we'll try to just call that V4. And push forward. That's I think our kind of main goal right now. If it turns out that we can't do that, we might sort of say that there's like 2 models. There might be like a lightning model and a thunder model, which is like there'll be the fast one and there'll be the powerful one. But I don't know if I want to do like lightning and thunder. That sounds cool, but I'm like a little scared of making things really complicated. And so I think the more complicated, like I understand a lot of people here, you can handle it. Like you can handle anything. You're powerful people, but it does make it really hard for us as engineers to support you at some point. So we basically need to try to push forward and simplify. And so right now, they're basically all hands on deck trying to get one solid V4 version into testing. And I would say what that looks like right now is we have like a candidate V4 version that we haven't tested fully, so maybe there's a problem with it, but I like it a lot. Um, and then we have a version that's sort of hot in on the tails of that version that is even better. And so what we might actually end up doing is we might end up doing like a test, like sort of test and test P, but for the V4, and we'll tell everybody like, don't get too attached to it. We're going to replace this. This is not going to be a long-term model. And then we'll hopefully then flip to the final one. I think there's a good chance of us doing that, where we're going to kind of have this like really early V4 thing, or like it's going to have a big change. But that way people can kind of get a feel for it, and we can actually see, we can get a feel ourselves for what it's like to give a community of this size access to like a model that's much more powerful than anything that anybody's ever had. In practice, every time we release a new model, we kind of discover new things, like new good things and new bad things. And so basically getting that testing over with as quickly as possible, so we can kind of figure out like what safeties we might need, or what maybe could maybe what yeah what yeah what could, what's maybe there'll be a problem. Like there could be problems with the models, that happens. Um, but we'll see. And so I think I would say my current goal is to have like a short period test of a new and bigger model as soon as possible, and then we may or may not keep that model up while we move to the next model. Honestly, my biggest problem is that like I want to push something out as quickly as possible, that people get attached to it, and so I don't fully know what to do about that, because like I like the models, I like it how other people like the models, but then when people become attached to the models, then we can't, like we have to support everything forever, and so it's been really challenging to do that, and I don't really know. Yeah, so we'll probably call it like a 24-hour test or 48-hour test, and we'll try to get that out as quickly as possible. And we might say it's a 1 week test, and then we'll change things, hopefully. So, yeah, so that like try pushing really hard towards a V4. That's, I would say, the most important thing right now. Um, we're working really hard on it. We have a huge, giant AI supercomputer training lots of things every day. Everyone's working really hard. I'm very excited about it. I can't say exactly when it's going to come out, but I think I could say that we kind of locked in on what we think is the right way to do it, and we have previews of it, and we're moving towards that as quickly as possible. I think one of the other goals of these bigger models is that they will be both higher quality and faster and bigger batches, and they'll actually let us have more users. Right now, like test and test P happen on very specific GPUs that run out sometimes, and that's been really challenging for us. But the new versions will run on more GPUs, so that way we're less likely to, like, we'll be able to have faster service, like better relax mode, sort of all the good things. So we're very much trying to think not just how do we make things better for the current users, but how do we have something that's better for 10 times as many users? Because right now, to be honest, like one of the reasons why we like are so quiet and that we don't like is that we basically, if we grow too fast, it could hurt us. And like when we had to start kicking people off of the inactive non-paid users off the Discord, like a month or two ago, that was really bad, because Discord couldn't handle more users. And like we had other times we ran out of GPUs for a few days. That was bad. And those were with relatively small surges of users. And so trying to make sure that we can kind of actually have headroom. So like, for example, if our headroom is like 50% beyond where we are, then if there's a big YouTube video one day, it could take down the service in some way. Whereas we're trying to get to the point where we have a 10x headroom above where we are. And that way, when we have 10x, headroom, we can we might be able to do marketing and like actually try to have more users. Whereas right now we're like every person who joins, we're like very thankful, but we're always kind of like, man, it's a good thing that like not everybody knows about us yet because we probably couldn't handle it, you know. Um, so we've been very low key, and I think that's the biggest reason why. Um, yeah, so basically we've been hiring a lot too. So feel free to send more resumes, careers at midjourney.com. We're basically trying to like expand the team. We're probably trying to like double the team. We're trying to like double the team, and then we're trying to have the product and the website better, so that we can handle 10 times as many users. And I think we're going to do a lot more really crazy projects. It's hard to like specifically around user interfaces because like if everybody starts making 64 images at a time, like if we go from 2x2 grids to 8x8 grids, then all of a sudden like everyone's making like 10,000 images a day. And like, what is that? I think that's going to look like a very different product. Um, so yeah, so basically, I think we're focused on trying to figure out what these, like, I think basically the images are either going to become really fast, or you're going to be making basically either we're going to be getting you images really, really quickly, or we're going to be giving you a lot of images in the same time. Those are kind of two different products, two different user interfaces. I don't know like which will be better. So we're going to be prototyping things that are like, what does it look like to have images instantly, versus what does it look like to have 64 images every 60 seconds. Um, my gut says that the big grids will win, but we'll see. Um, and but we have to basically try both. And but either of those changes, whether it's big grids or really fast speeds, are going to significantly change the feel of the product. And so I think that like that's a big open question. That's probably the biggest open question for us next, which is that like our new algorithms will give either bigger grids or faster speeds. Which is more important? What do each product feel like? Which is actually better? And like where does that take us? And this is a big reason why I've been holding off from doing a lot of things that other services do, where they do like the in painting and the paintbrushes, and because I'm thinking like spending that much time on one picture is going to feel weird when you can iterate through 100 images at a time. And then similarly, anything that you might do right now around a single image is going to be very different if you can get if you can update the image once a second, and if you can update it once every 20 seconds. And so basically, I think that a lot of the user interface stuff that's happening in the space right now is basically premature, um, considering how much further the technology is going to go. And so basically, pushing the technology over that ledge so we can actually do that user interface research, and then pushing that as quickly as possible will be cool. I think the next version of the tech will basically be beyond our current user interfaces, meaning that we're going to be able to do big grids, but we haven't figured out a good way to do big grids inside of Discord, and it kind of sucks. Like there isn't an easy way to give you an 8x8 grid in Discord and let you upscale something. I just don't know what. It's just I haven't been able to figure out what to do about that. But our web interface can probably do it, but our web interface is not optimized yet for that. And so we're trying to figure out basically user interface stuff, but it may end up being that we need really different user interfaces to support these features. We probably will, but what do we do in the short term? I don't know. That's a big question that we just don't know right now. Yeah, so I guess one last thing is we're going to try to update the billing plans at some point. We're going to probably have like we're going to have the $10 plan, the $30 plan. I think we're going to add a $60 plan with more fast hours for people who want it. So that way you don't have to do meter billing. We're going to also let people buy a year plan up front for a 20% discount is our hope. And what that means that if people like are kind of all in on it, you shouldn't have to pay as much. And also like for some people, particularly in Europe, it's a lot easier to do like one payment up front than it is to do monthly payments. It's kind of has to do with the payment systems. And so that like them to be able to buy it up front might be a lot easier for people in certain countries. And so we're basically we had a lot of people asking. I think it was like 70% of people wanted the yearly plan, and so we're going to do that. And then and the $60 plan, it's a little bit high for some people, so don't worry about it if you can't afford it. But the reason why I think we need to offer a $60 plan is that some people right now do metered, and metered is really expensive. And so basically, for people who are doing metered all the time, the $60 plan is actually a pretty big discount. It saves them a lot of money. And so, and it lets us kind of anticipate that demand for those people. And so that'll be cool too. And then, so yeah, probably 10 to 10, 30, and 60. One day I want to offer a $20 plan actually, but I think that'll maybe happen in a month or two, and that'll be a different type of plan. And then at some point we'll have a free plan too. That'll be another interesting one. But at some point I want to do a free plan where basically it's for people who basically can't pay, but you have to do a lot of work for us. Like you have to rate a fuck ton of images, and you have to like basically like help us improve our algorithm by doing a lot of work. But I think that like there's a certain number we could probably support like 10,000 free users who do a lot of work basically. But it'll be too much work for most people, but for a lot of people who like literally couldn't afford the service any other way, but who are smart and wonderful people, we'll be able to kind of use them to help make the product better for everybody. So in that case, we're actually kind of subsidizing those people, because like when those people make images, it still costs us money. The worst thing we do is we'll take some of the money from the community, and then we'll subsidize like the usage for a number of people to do it free, because they'll be doing work that makes it better for everyone else. Yeah, obviously no one has to do it, but like I think that basically, I think like free images in exchange for helping make the algorithms better is like a lot better for everybody than like me doing ads or something to do a free tier. Like the idea of an ad supported free tier kind of freaks me out. So like I'm not gonna do that. So like, yeah, and to be honest, I've done a lot of the ratings too. And the cool thing is if you do the right kind of ratings, it can actually like inspire you to like in your own creation. And so it might actually like make those people who are doing that work actually a lot better. Sorry, I was drinking something. Yeah, so unifying the infrastructure, new version of the algorithms, new versions of some billing, and yeah, we're probably going to do I don't know, I did a preview it yet. Now I'm gonna hold that. And then 2 other surprises coming in the next 30 days. Um, so yeah, there'll be some small, yeah, and I think that's it. I will just take a step back and probably go to questions for a bit. So yeah, we always try to have a little bit of surprises, right? I think it's good. Like I think there should always be one surprise every month. All right, let's do that. Let's try to do one surprise every month. I think that seems good. Like the tiling was really cool, and I really want to have a tiling part on the website. I feel bad, but we'll have that. Oh, also the new website stuff at some point will have some better organizational features and handle profiles a little differently. Um, oh, I guess also we haven't. We'll also be like removing the limits soon on the servers. So that means that if anybody here has a giant Discord server or knows somebody with a giant Discord server that wants the MidJourney bot on it, you'll be able to add it to giant servers soon. So like right now, the official limit I think is 30,000. So like you can't put the MidJourney bot on a server bigger than 30,000, but soon we'll remove that limit, and the MidJourney bots will be on any of the servers. So that'll be interesting and intense. See what that does. Cool. I think that's everything. And now I'm gonna just chill. Kind of always takes me 30 minutes. It's a 30-minute brief every time. That's so cool. Yeah, I did my 30-minute spiel. So now we'll lean back and just answer questions. Yeah, feel free to ask whatever, like philosophical questions, stories about like any like yeah, literally. Did you hear a squeak? I hope there wasn't a squeak when I leaned back. But yeah, whatever. I'm down. So just try to make myself available for a few hours and just answer questions.
Hi, David. This is Jamar's band. I really love the product that you guys are making. I've been using MidJourney, I think for about 2 months now, and it's just a lot of fun to experiment with. And my question was, I was curious if you guys are thinking of implementing like an image-to-image algorithm. I'm curious, like looking at Stable Diffuser and thinking of like, is there a way that I could use MidJourney to take images that I have drawn or illustrated and change it stylistically in a different way or in like a more playful way? So just curious about those types of features, if there's anything like that on the horizon.
Yeah, so I want to make something specifically for artists at some point. I think there's like I think there's a moral need to make something specifically for artists, but I don't think it's going to be image to image because image to image is really good for like blobs of color, but it's really bad for like pencil drawings and pen drawings and sketches in general. And there isn't really a way to make it good at those things. And so I don't want to force artists to draw big blobby colors. I want to make a version that actually works for like all like sketches and like whether what no matter what kind it is. So we've been holding off on image to image and waiting for a version that we could do that would be more a little bit more powerful that can handle a broader range of inputs. And then we will probably restrict the inputs. So like anything that looks like a sketch, we would take in, but anything that's a photo will probably not. Because I don't think we don't really want to be a photo filter service, but I do think there's something to be said about something you can kind of work through with sketches. Um, but yeah, image to image just it can't work with sketches right now. It's like really, it's like it has to do with the technical details. So we really want to try to solve that at some point. We might actually put out a call to get data from more artists to help us with that. But it's a data thing right now. We're trying to collect a big data set of like effectively pencil sketch like things to try to teach the AI not just about what a final image looks like, but what the process of creating images looks like. And so we basically need more data about people like drawing images effectively. And then I think once we can get the model to learn what it's like to draw an image, it can actually become like part of your drawing process, which I think is kind of the more humanistic uh, product.
I see. Oh, that's pretty fascinating. I didn't realize it was like a technical issue because I'm curious. I guess I wouldn't say it's necessarily about translating like a sketch to a different style, but more like telling Midjourney exactly what the composition should be. I think there's always a moment when I like imagine something and I do put it in words, but the styling, not the styling, but like the placement of the objects exactly how I want it isn't um what I envisioned or what I wanted. So I was just curious like if a sketch to detail that would be um like what are the possibilities of that? So but
We thought about
that's
releasing a version that would be like just a binary mask where you can kind of do like a white and black blobs and it kind of guides the composition. Um, I I feel like in general it makes worse images that way.
oh interesting.
Gets me a bit anxious. Like that's
Mhm.
not a Midjourney thing. I think just like honestly, I would say it. I think image to image in general always results in worse pictures.
Oh,
Like
okay.
I think it like it's kind of controversial, but like I don't know. I just think that like in general, like when it restricts, yeah, and so it makes me feel a little bit iffy on that.
Mhm.
Like my goal is always if I prefer, I would rather try to have a thing where people could anchor. Like we have our vision of like this anchoring system where you could say like I want the composition of this picture but like the style of this picture and the character in this picture, and you could anchor things that way. And I'd like that a little better, definitely. But I'm just a little anxious right now about people putting blobby pictures into it. Um, I'm a little because I think it generally makes it gives you more control, but it makes things I think worse.
Mm,
And
mhm.
it also I think distracts people maybe from the like I get a little anxious about there's like a lot of I think there's a lot of desire right now that like to kind of turn AI image making into like very much like a Photoshop tool. But I think that's probably not like an honest depiction of what the future is going to look like. I think the user interfaces will be really different. And
Mhm.
so I have to be kind of careful and like not let that stuff suck us away from what I feel is more going to be like the most powerful thing. But I would hope that in the future, like you could say something that you want, and you may or may not give it some image references, or maybe you just use words, and then it gives you like a giant grid, and then maybe like three of them are more like a bunch of like three of them are almost there, and you say I like these three, and then you get another 100, and then you're like, oh, just these two, and then you get another 100, and it's like, oh, this is the one. So like basically going through iterations of large grids to kind of hone in on what you want and communicate to the model what you want, I think is probably going to it's going to literally be faster than like opening up Photoshop and drawing the blobs, I think. And it will lead to like much better results. So I think that's kind of where I see the user interface going right now. More than, but I think that there is a user interface for people who can draw. And I think that like there should be something for people who are really good at drawing to draw really good drawings and then to kind of interweave that drawing into the image making process. But I think then that system has to be really, really aware of what drawing is, and it has to be really made for those people. So I don't know, that might not be you, but I did. There's some people I don't know, but there are some people that I like. That there's like the physical process of drawing is beautiful, and to make something that could kind of interweave with that, I think would be really humanistic to try to go for. And I've thought that's. I would say that like I feel emotionally compelled to make something that's good for people at drawing, and then I feel intellectually compelled to build these giant batch interfaces for people who kind of know what they want, but aren't necessarily fast at drawing or don't know exactly what they want. I think that's
Got
kind of how
it.
I feel right now.
All right. Well, thank you so much.
No problem. Thank you. Oh yeah. A lot of people lately have been like, David, why are you changing the models on us? I'm like, we're not changing anything. We haven't changed any models. So I want to let everyone know that like our philosophy is we will never change the algorithms without telling you. So we will tell you when we change the algorithms. Don't worry, we're never changing things without telling you. Uh, Hello.
Hello. Wow, you let me in. Thank you. um, you've probably seen my questions and comments in the feedback for a while, and I love MidJourney. I made like I don't know 5,000 or 6,000 images in my first month. I love it. I'm hooked. You got me. Um, my single biggest thing is that the composition. I absolutely drives me insane, like, call me OCD or whatever, but when the tops of heads get chopped off, I just see red. I see a lot of red.
We think that'll be
You
fixed.
know?
We think that'll just be it's more of a bug, so I think that'll be fixed in the future.
Okay, because I was thinking, I've listened to your office hours and you've mentioned, that if people could add things to prompts, like I guess you had that in the beginning and it was confusing to people. The thing that I thought of that would be great is if I could just have a zoom out button, like zoom out 25% and render it again. Like not even like infilling. It's like even if it was just a variation, it's like, okay, so take this picture I like and variate it and zoom out. Just 25% or whatever number that would allow a change mid-roll that isn't something people can understand. It's just a button, right? And you could do a zoom in too, because if people are trying to, you know, and yeah, okay, it would probably zoom to the middle of the picture and it still wouldn't be the absolute answer, but it's something that wouldn't be a complicated fix.
Yeah, I think that a zooming out button, or actually, I was thinking of calling it more of like a reframing button. So, like maybe you want to, make it a landscape, right? And it was square. And maybe you
Right,
want to go
right.
for a portrait. Um, I think that we have some experimental features like that seem to work.
That
I
would be awesome.
don't think I'm going to release it before the new models in general,
Hmm.
but I think one of the challenges is that like um, a lot of the cropping stuff is a bug, you know? I wouldn't
Well,
want
I
to
remember you talked
I'd
about,
rather fix the bug, but
yeah, the training algorithm. You said it was chopping things up, and I understand that. And I'm not asking for the world here. I'm just asking for, come on, zoom out, get the whole head in there, or the whole body without the feet cut off, or just the algorithm is dumb. We know this, right? I mean, it's dumb. It doesn't know that the top of the head is a really important part of a portrait. So I
yeah, I
mean,
mean,
I'm understand. I'm not dissing the AI. I'm just saying it doesn't know, right?
oh, yeah,
So
of course. It's not, it doesn't really yeah, it doesn't really know, almost doesn't know, it's, like, weird, it's like it doesn't know anything, but also knows a lot. Like,
right,
it's both, like, knows things and doesn't know things. It's really
it's
maybe it
amazing,
knows things but doesn't understand. Maybe, like,
right?
knowing versus understanding, that would be a interesting way of saying it.
Yeah. It,
But I
can,
think I like the idea of, like, some kind of reframing, uncropping feature.
mhm.
We have some prototypes of stuff like that. I don't think we have anything that I think we have to focus on shipping the new core model first,
Mhm.
and then we have to simplify the product before we make it more complicated. But then I think that something that allows people to reframe images is a very, like, legitimate ask that we should add at that point.
Okay. Yeah, and the
But
reason I brought it up again today was just that it's felt like in previous office hours, you've kind of poo-pooed it because you've got your eye on the prize, the other prizes. And I think if you sit down and you really talk to people who are trying to use this to create art that they're going to use for something, that you will find that composition is one of the major beefs. Like, I'm
yeah,
more interested in composition than in 64 variations, honestly.
it's true. I mean, it's a question of whether, like, you have a picture you want, but you wanna change the composition versus you're trying to get the composition right on the first time, you know? So the grids will help you get the composition right on the first time, but if you like something that you really wanna change the composition on, then you need a change composition tool, um, basically. One thing I would say is that, like, when I do have big grids and it works really well, I generally see something that I just like way more than I would, like, I think that it's possible that, like, the desire to change an image that's almost there is partially because there aren't enough choices of images to begin with, but it's hard to say how that's gonna balance out. I think there's still a legitimate desire to reframe things,
I
because,
might
like, the ability
suggest you
to,
do
like,
a poll. Oh, sorry.
what's that?
I might suggest you do a poll on that and ask people which is more important, more images or some sort of zoom or recomposite, because I think you would find that the recomposite would get more than you might think it would.
Oh, yeah, I think I think I would already say I'm planning on doing a recomposite.
Mhm.
It's just gonna come after the next model, because, um, we have too many models right now, and it will break us effectively if we keep adding more features.
Mm.
So, I have to I actually I'm one of my big challenges right now is to, like, we can't have more features. We can't have, like, more models than engineers, you know? It's starting to get risky. So, at some point, I either have to start dropping things entirely, or I have to start, like, I have to try to simplify. I don't know. I have to basically. This is like I'm a, like, it was pretty scary, like, this last week when we were trying to move the infrastructure over, and then there were, like, a million edge cases, and I'm like, I think made us a little scared of, like, being really thoughtful about the order that we add the features, because we're not going to be able to support every feature connected to every other feature, you know. So probably I think what I'm gonna do is I'm probably going to have a lot of these new features for the new models, and then we're gonna probably stop supporting a lot of the features for the older, like, the old ones will run, but I think we'll keep the old stuff going, but we're, like, not going to keep making it so anything can be plugged into anything else, because then we're getting, like, 10 things plugged into 10 other things. It's like 100 combinations. So
Yeah.
probably, like, release the new models, and then start adding features like the bigger batches and the recompositions. And then if you
Okay.
like older images, you can probably pull them in to the newer systems. So probably like a remaster of some kind, and then you can, I don't know. Basically, that's the challenge. It's more of like, what's the roadmap to get to the features, rather
Mhm.
than just
Whenever
adding.
whenever you do get to that, I hope you make sure that we can go back to the old ones because I have tons of pictures I love, and if I could just fix it. And to the people in the crowd, a few people have mentioned, you can go to other services and do that. Well, if I have to go to other services, why am I using this one, right? I want to be able to do it all here. I love the product you've created, and I don't want to have to go somewhere else. That's all.
It
So
is
anyway,
hard.
I've
I would
probably
say
overstayed my.
I would say that I am supportive of people using other services for features that they like. But like because it is scary for us like to have to do all possible features,
Mhm.
because like I want it so that everybody can just use us for everything, but it's also like maybe not realistic for us to do every possible feature.
Mhm.
So like in an ideal world, there'd be like an ecosystem where people could use this for this and use that for that, and but I don't really want to be like the gargantuan monster that has all features.
Yeah.
But I don't know because it's hard. I don't know. Um like in theory, like for example, like I like Photoshop. Like I like the ability for someone to take our pictures and put them into Photoshop and fix them up. And I don't feel super motivated to put like Photoshop heal tools, like make our own heal tool.
Mhm.
So I don't know. It's like we're gonna make the recomposition feature. We'll probably put in the next version, and then but yeah, I would say that we are struggling significantly with the sort of desires of people for us to have every possible feature and every combination of every possible feature. And we
Yeah,
still don't
I
really
get
know
it.
how to do that. Yeah.
I'm just very reassured that it's on the roadmap because back, a month ago, it didn't sound like it was anywhere on the roadmap. So thank you for taking the time, and I will get off of here and let the next people ask the questions because it looks like uh, people are unhappy that we're taking so long. But thank you for the
Okay.
time and for this awesome product because I really enjoy this, and I look forward to the improvements you've got coming.
Thank you. I would say the
Hi,
area that
David.
I'm prob oh, hello.
Oh, no, go ahead, finish.
Oh, maybe just as a last clarification, like there's something about recomposing things that I feel really good about. The area that I'm more scared of, just to like for the record, is like where people are like painting over small areas of it, just because um uh like I think there are needs for it. Like if someone wants to give a character like a nose ring, maybe, but I don't know. It definitely makes things really complicated, and it gets us away from like the exploration aspect. And I see so many beautiful images in the big grits. Like I feel like that's the biggest thing that I got to get to. Uh, yeah, it captures me as a person. Uh, anyway, hello, Gabri.
Hey, hello. I'm a software developer in Barcelona, and I've been running some experiments with MidJourney, basically doing some prompt permutations with different subjects, different settings, and generating, not too big experiments, just like around 1,000 images. And basically, then we've been rating them with the ELO algorithm that it's used in chess and whatnot to pick like the top ones. And basically, I have this database that I built of the generations that we've done and many thousands of ratings. And I was wondering if it would be useful in order to give back something to you, if I were to call the endpoints to rate these images, like basically map the rating that I've done on my site privately with the emojis to react and rate in MidJourney. So you can end up using this data for training. Basically, I have the IDs of the upscales, of the first grids, and whatnot.
Um, I think our current rating system is okay for our current needs. We are building a new rating system, which will be way more
Mhm.
complicated. I think right now we're gonna do another week or two of like the current ratings, and then we're gonna be probably focusing on just like everything being totally different. Like we're gonna do an ordering based rating system where people like click the ones in order that they like. And we're gonna do a bunch of different weird things. So I think basically we're kind of we're close to deprecating our current rating system. Like we're not changing it, and then we're gonna replace it with a new version that will be hopefully part with the free tier has access to. So that's kind of what we're thinking in terms of ratings right now. I do appreciate the desire to help though, and we are definitely looking to hire people to help us with ratings, broadly speaking. If anybody wants to send us the emails at the careers@midjourney.com.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, that was my question pretty much.
Okay,
And good
Thank you.
job. Love the tool.
thank you.
Okay, so sorry if I'm horribly new and bad at Discord. So I wanted to just make like a humorous comment that comes to mind with other people's questions is, as a working artist, where working artists always want and need a high degree of control and output, and you are understandably much more interested in like creative and, like you say, vibey output. So office hours every week is like, you're going to tell me 10 things that make me go yes, and one thing that makes me go no please, I really wanted that. But the question I had today was kind of more of a theory question. I know it's probably not something you're going to be interested in doing soon, if you're interested in doing it ever, but I'm wondering if it's possible with the way diffusion models work. If somebody got their hands on a huge amount of vector stock and made that uniform in size, like we do with the images to bring them down to 512, 512 or whatever, could a diffusion model learn to read a vector image and then output vector images?
Yeah, we've been thinking about this too on like a theoretical level. We're not working on it right now, but we sort of spec'd it out and thought about it a little. And I mean, the challenge with vector images is that like machine learning models like data that has a fixed length. So a fixed length might be like there's always a certain number of pixels, or there's always a certain number of words. And the challenge with vector art is that there isn't really a format for it that has sort of like a fixed length representation, as they would say. And so because there isn't a fixed length representation, the challenge is like how do you get it to actually learn how to output a vector? So one thing, for example, is you could say, okay, you get 1,000 triangle shapes, and then you can move those 1,000 triangles around to make it a vector image, and it'll do that. That works. We've tried that stuff before. Or you can say you have 1,000 lines. But the challenge is when you want it to be like more structured, like modern vector work is. There isn't necessarily a supernatural way to represent it, and so that's the challenge. It's just possible that you could ask it to like write out the like SVG code as if it was programming, and maybe that'll work, but it's also kind of scary to do it that way. So I think we're still thinking about that. There might be other ways of doing it. For example, like something that's closer to like a assigned distance field, which is like you have math equations, and math equations have distances to like these to specific shapes, and then it kind of drops those in. But then it's going to look like a vector image that isn't human made at that point.
Right. Because and also
ahead.
they're like I worked in vector for years and years and years before I started doing pixel stuff. So there's also the two very distinct things that it might be helpful to break it down into this or that, where people do more photographic or colored art where your highlights and your shading and all that are individual shapes overlaid on the thing, and then there's like vector line art where there's not the shading but it's very good for technical illustration and things like that.
Mhm.
So it might be completely different models.
Yeah,
All right, I was curious as to whether or not that was possible, and like I said, I knew it wouldn't be something that you guys would front burner for quite a while, but if it was possible, maybe somewhere down the line. Other than that, it's a fantastic tool. I'm really enjoying it. I keep thinking like maybe I should send an email to see if you guys would have any use for like an artist liaison person, somebody who's got years and years of commercial artist experience and can translate between artists and programmers well, or if that's redundant to what you've got.
I don't really know what to do with the professional art industry. I think that I probably cannot make. What I probably need to do is I probably need to make a really good consumer imagination tool, and artists will like using that, and it will be helpful for them. And I could even make a specific couple of things for artists, like the drawing thing. But that, like, I should basically say no to everyone who wants us to become Adobe.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of working artists who would, even without going further into the question, say yes, absolutely, do not become Adobe, please. But yeah,
Well, but the thing is,
I get
like,
what you're saying, though.
I mean, yeah, but it's kind of a weird thing, right? Because like Adobe charges about like we charge a subscription like Adobe does. I don't know. Is the main thing people don't like about Adobe is the subscription, or just that they don't update things, or like you know what I mean? But
I think a
like,
lot of people. I mean, yeah, there's still obviously there's a lot of complaint about the subscription stuff, but there's also like they're just always piling stuff on, and they don't bundle stuff logically. And there's just a lot of anger for whatever variety of reasons. But that's basically all I had. So I'm having a great time. I'm enjoying what you're doing. I'm in awe of it, and I'll be here for a long time. Thank you.
thank you. I think there's always this kind of philosophical conversation, like in the user interface space, about like what tools in technology should be. And so one of the founders of user interfaces was called Douglas Engelbart. He invented the text editor and like was one of the people behind graphical user interfaces and like the mouse, like most of modern computing, and and like hypertext, like which is like hyperlinks in the web, the modern web. And he had this belief that using a computer should be as difficult and as learning how to ride a bike, and that learning how to use a computer should be as hard as learning how to read and write, or how to speak English, because like reading and writing and speaking and riding a bike, those are all like difficult things that empower us for our entire lives. So computers should be the same way because they can be every bit as powerful. And it was very interesting because it was a very intellectually compelling argument. However, I think it's very clear to us now, looking back over the last 30 years, that is not what technology has become. Like, there's nothing in technology that's as hard to learn as riding a bike. Maybe, I guess, Maya, but maybe not actually, because like you can learn these Maya pretty quickly, but like riding a bike is just hard. Or learning to read and write was just hard. Like yeah, no, it's certainly like Maya is harder than reading and writing. So Maya is easier than reading and writing. Reading and writing is hard. And so what's interesting is that like technology has broadly not become complicated. Um, and it's interesting to ask why that's happened, and like why someone like Douglas Engelbart, who invented so much of what we use, kind of like lost in this goal to make technology like powerful and complicated. And I had this friend. We have there are a lot of designers in San Francisco. That's where kind of all the a lot of the tech design is. And I was having a bunch of the friends come together, and I was like, "What did Douglas Engelbart get wrong?" And one of my friends said something that kind of still sticks with me today. And he goes, a very brilliant designer. He says, "I think what we can say is that in hindsight, it's not that complexity is bad, but that complexity was not often necessary to accomplish what people actually want to do." And so there's this interesting question of like complexity, like in terms of the potential, like what's the complexity you can build to reach the maximum potential of something versus what's the complexity of something that you can build that kind of gets what people want done. And at first it sounds kind of like sucky, like, who cares about like normal people, what they want to get done. But there's also something to be said about how like the best Note app still is like whatever, like Apple Notes, where it's like basically there's no interface. And like the best writing apps like are just like white slates, that let you focus on your task. So there's something about like this trade-off between complexity and creativity and like the thoughtful space of mind and like flow states. And every time we add a slider to MidJourney, my heart breaks when I see somebody like spending 12 hours trying to think about that slider instead of like just playing with the words themselves of the prompts. And so like there's definitely this challenge of like we can add all these features and they definitely add power, but then it takes them away from like the sort of core creative, like the core creative lever points, which are I think like words and images. And so I think, yeah, there's something like really I'm constantly kind of thinking about, which is the balance between empowering complexity, necessary complexity, and then the focus and like the simplicity and the space to let people focus and be creative. And I think that's maybe one reason why I don't want to be Adobe. It's because a lot of these tools are really complicated. And I think we found over the last 20 years that maybe that's not what technology is about. Like it's about trying to create these beautifully simple interfaces that create emergent complexity and like that allow us to be like spaces to be creative in, but that don't have like 1,000 drop down menus and that don't require fiddling with a bunch of knobs. And that's one of those really to think about philosophically as a user interface designer. Bit of a rant, but it's helpful to say every once in a while to give us like how we think about things.
But it causes a lot of thought. It's a thoughtful rant. I think it made me think of like the 80-20 balance on the battery on an electric car, where you can get to that 80% really fast and easy, and then it takes a while to get past that. And I don't think that's a bad thing to aim for with creative tools or work tools either, where it's like you make it really super easy to do 80% of what anybody would want to do so that people can get in there and do what they want to do and everything. And then to do like that last 20%, that's where you really got to learn stuff. And MidJourney is kind of like that now. I mean, with my background being a working artist and everything, I was trying to work all that out on my own and doing lots of iterations, changing one word at a time and all that stuff until I discovered, RTFM is always the last step you take, right? But I discovered the prompt craft area and started thinking what other people have the work they've already put in. And that's that same 20% curve. MidJourney, you built it in such a way that it can make beautiful things for very little amount of effort. And if you really want to take it to the next level, you've got to put in the work to get to that last 20%.
Yeah, and I would say that like I have a lot of other. Actually, use the royal we. We have a lot of other. We have a lot of other things on our minds as we get deeper into this that are not related to, like for example, it's true that like MidJourney could give a lot more control, but one of the things that I hate most about MidJourney right now is that it is very non-physical. It's a very non-physical process. And I think that we are physical creatures. And in some ways, like if I kind of took the current MidJourney and I took it to its natural extreme, then like a professional artist would be somebody who's in this like dark room and they just like say the smallest number of words that make the images, like blue dog, and then they get everything they need. And I don't like that future. And so I think something that is at some point is actually much more important than having 100 drop down menus is actually taking a step back and saying like what is the sort of more physicalized version of these tools that somebody could use for 10 hours a day and not feel terrible, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, like what is a like woodworker? What's like a wood shop look like? But for like the sort of digital physical wood shop, but for like these sort of new tools. What is it? How do I make it feel like cooking instead of like typing, you know? Like how do we sort of make it into more of a how do we make it in sort of more the sort of physicalized humane craft, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that that's probably something that's really important for me to think about. And I want to avoid drop down menus if I ever can. You know, it's like, but like there's some serious, there are like, yeah, there's like, those are serious, that's like a really serious question is like, I think that this medium is going to have to evolve to be more like, and somehow more manifesting and more physicalized. Or else it kind of, it will become so powerful that, you know, everybody will be in a dark room muttering words because they'll be the only ones that can make anything that is really great, you know? And like, so you kind of have to like the technology is going to get so powerful. I think it will kind of, I think it will like, it's going to be hard not to use these technologies in the future. And so there's a sort of dual track, which is like, you want to make technology more powerful, but you also want to really, yeah, what's the 12-hour a day version of this that feels like good at the end of the day, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think about that a lot. Like, I
Yep.
don't think it's probably not going to be like a mouse and keyboard because the keyboard is great at typing, but it mouse and keyboard is bad at like going through 10,000 images, and it's certainly bad at drawing. It's probably not going to be a drawing tablet because a drawing tablet is great for drawing, but isn't really like you kind of block the screen with your hands, you know? And so it's not a
On a
great way for
tablet, I got like a 32-inch canvas, so it's great for mine. But VR goggles also. I mean, it's like I feel like I've heard you mention that before, and I was just about to say, if you ever get to the point where it interacts with you real time on a drawing tablet or VR, I'm so there to test it. But I gotta
Yeah.
say goodbye and get off the stage. But thank you very much. I mean, I can hear you answer and then feel like for social politeness, I have to stay on long enough to say thank you and goodbye. So I should say thank you and goodbye now before.
Okay. Yeah, no, so I guess I'm definitely thinking about the user, like radical user interfaces and even physical user interfaces. Those are probably my biggest things right now that I'm trying to think about is like it's absolutely not, and it's not in the normal, it's not in the existing paradigm. Like we got to go off the map, you know, off the edge of the cliff, you know, beyond beyond the clouds to the next mountaintop. There's a beautiful humane world of tools, and I'm very focused on that.
Be here to jump in line when you want people to test it. Thank you.
So we will.
Well, I guess I'll ask my question now.
Uh,
That was an interesting conversation, though. That was for sure. So my question is there going to be any blanking? Is there going to be any looking into improving the bot's variants in art styles? Because I've noticed that the bot or the AI algorithm, whatever you want to call it, tends to prefer to go with an art style that is painted and hyper realistic. I've tried myself to make things that are more cartoony or in like an anime visual novel art style. And I've seen people of varying degrees like succeed and fail, but I've seen it time and time again where the bot or the AI just goes, "Oh, you want me to draw this anime character? Let me make it look like a real person by default."
Yeah, I think we definitely want to make it as good as possible in a variety of styles. I think there are certain things in there it doesn't have a lot of. Like, it doesn't have a lot of anime, it doesn't have a lot of cartoons.
Yes,
think
because
we're
I
like-
tried to use that to make things for what I do, which is YouTube stuff with like voice acting kind of stuff with like anime style characters. Like, tried to see if I could use that kind of for my job, and I was like, I can't. At least not
Well,
at this point in time.
I
However,
wouldn't worry about anime. It's gonna get a lot better in anime soon.
yes,
I do
very
think
much the
that-
backgrounds is what I want to see.
The backgrounds.
Yes, anime style backgrounds, like not just people, like the world, like how vibrant and crazy they are.
Yeah, I think we'll have that too. We're definitely working on those areas of adding more styles and more understanding of it. Like different mediums.
Yes, because
Something
I
I
also
love-
saw. Oh, sorry, I keep interrupting you. Discord lag, I
Okay.
guess.
It's funny,
I was
Yeah,
gonna
I
say I
love
saw. You talk first.
there's a lot of mediums that we know we're missing, and we want to try to get more coverage over them, like old comic books or something. Really cool.
Yeah. I've also seen like people try to get like pixel art going and having a hard time with that. And it's like, yeah, it needs more than just let's go and paint this by default. And that was just something I was wondering if you guys were working on and had any ideas for trying to teach the AI these new, new, different things that can be equally as beautiful.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get. I mean, like, I think the goal is to give it like the broadest understanding of the visual medium as possible, and then let people like push out the boundaries of aesthetics to get completely beyond basically like what currently exists. Yeah, I'm pretty sure that like there's like the hero's mid journey, so everyone starts off with stuff they like, and then they combine them, and then they get like they burn out, and then they basically start looking for new aesthetics and asking like, is that me? And then they finally end up in a new aesthetic that's not since ever existed before, and it's like their new aesthetic universe. And I think that's like super fucking cool. So, but along the way, you kind of have to make sure you have all the different aesthetics that people can kind of both explore and like manifest. But I do think that where it
Right.
ends up is in like a
So-
totally different space.
So I had a bit of question about. Sorry. Oh, I didn't know I was up here yet. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay. You continue. Sorry, I didn't know I was up here.
I mean, that was all my question. So if you do want to ask yours, you can go right ahead. I think he was finished answering it, anyways.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Are you done, bro? Okay. So I had a question about. So would it be possible to make it like for mobile users? It's actually pretty difficult to reroll prompts. Like you basically have to copy what you said before. So one of my suggestions was like you can reroll prompts from the same image seed. Like say sometimes you get an image that you like and you can't copy. You basically have to go to pull the job up and you have to copy the seed. It makes it pretty tedious. And also I think it'd be helpful to like show the seed per generation. And basically you say, okay, this seed came from this one. You can basically regenerate another image that has the same composition or similar composition. And also for mobile usage, it'd also be easy like if you copy. Sometimes you try to copy the prompt, and you basically can't copy without having the suffixes attached to it, which makes it kind of hard for mobile users to basically paste it in again. And what else is it? Oh, also a 3D anaglyph filter, like kind of like tile. So like say you have an image that you want to make look 3D, but you can't like I don't know how to explain it. You know how movies in the theaters are kind of 3D looking? Would that be possible to make it like an image that has like a 3D depth to it or something, or has like a how to explain like a double filter type effect? And adjusting the weight of images, like it would be possible to adjust the weight, like basically like image variations. Like sometimes you get too much image variation, like per image. I don't know, it's like you move too much of the algorithm maybe. But sometimes you want an image to be less variant from the previous versions. So a way to adjust that in the previous settings would be pretty nice. And yeah, I think that's mostly the suggestions I had. And also, it was I guess for image, if you're concerned about image generations, I feel like it'd be helpful, like instead of having like a whole bunch of grids all at once, Like, say you like an image a lot, you could basically have a whole bunch of generations for it. But say you're kind of curious about an image or what the result might be, you click it once or a few times to see how many results come up from that. Because sometimes you might get your prompt may be good or may be that successful, but you don't have to generate a whole like 64 images or 8x8 images of it. Say your top maybe 3 or 4 images generate, but you don't have like a whole bunch of them. So say you click it 4 times, maybe it's a 4x4. Maybe click it 3 times, it's like a 3x3, and maybe not much. Like, I don't know. And also in Discord, it may be kind of hard to like the image that's small too, because you might take up too much room. So maybe just instead of doing a grids, maybe just take a whole bunch of images all at once, like generate after either. Not that makes sense at all. But yeah, it's mostly what my suggestions were. That makes sense at all. Sorry, I didn't know I was on the stage earlier. I was reading what I said on my page.
That's okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Am I speaking? Oh, okay. Hi.
Hello.
I am here to ask you the Shy Guy questions. For people who are not familiar, I come on usually every week and ask questions to David that people put in the form that they don't want to come on voice chat for. I'm going to start with a kind of a philosophical one, which is, what do you think of the impact of the enormous amounts of varieties of art that will come out of AI just on the world? Like, what do you think will happen with that? If you're trying to speak, I can't hear you. Can anybody hear me?
I can hear you. It seems like David might have had some issues and need to leave and rejoin.
I just had a moment of like, oh no.
Hello.
All right, you're back.
Did you hear my question?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Actually, I may have. I just like lost it when I was leaving the room. It was. Oh yes, there'll be new aesthetic movements, and that basically made. There'll be new aesthetic movements created by new mediums, like as there always are. And there's going to be some like deindustrialization, where the industrial revolution, like a lot of people hailed it as the end of craftsmanship. Like all the objects used to look different, and now they look the same. I think that'll start to disappear. So more things will have more uniqueness to them.
Mm-hmm.
There'll be more of a swing from like minimalism to maximalism aesthetics, because you can do maximalist things more easily. And I think that there'll be sort of one of the goals of the MidJourney community is to kind of do something like a aesthetic accelerationism, where you're kind of creating this environment of shared aesthetics, people building off each other and trying to find greater and greater, more beautiful things. And then
Mm-hmm.
we should have like kind of I think there'll be a bit of this like era of almost like transhuman aesthetics,
Mm-hmm.
where it's like beyond. I mean, to say something that's beyond human is interesting, because like obviously this stuff goes in an area that's beyond human, but also if you think about it, like just like a CNC, like a machine that like makes a sphere, is kind of also beyond human. Human can't really make like a perfect sphere or perfect like I don't know. I feel like a lot of machines have done things that humans couldn't do. So
Yeah.
but I think there's something that's transhuman, maybe, and that's like a not purely machine driven way, but in a way of like so many people being able to express their ideas and like build off of each other. So like superhuman in like a hive mind way almost.
Mm-hmm.
And like a community way. Like a lot of AI people are scared of superhuman entities in the world that aren't safe. But we already have those. They're called corporations. And
Yeah.
I think that we absolutely can create sort of superhuman entities that are made of other humans. And so I think there's definitely an interesting opportunity also to have communities with technologies like this that kind of together are sort of superhuman aesthetic movements and sources of aesthetics. Some of this will be driven by people, some of it will also be driven by machines, like the ability that like somebody came to me and they're like, David, I don't understand. Am I an artist that's using MidJourney, or is MidJourney an artist? And I was like, no, neither. MidJourney is a flower and you're the bee. And they're like, what? It's like,
Oh.
yeah, flowers are trying to be beautiful for the bees, but the bees get to choose which flowers like make new flowers, So
Interesting.
there's also this like co-evolutionary element of this, which is that like the bees evolve with the flowers and the flowers evolve with the bees. And I think that's really interesting too. And I don't fully know what to make of that. Yeah, that's not. There's a lot of things going on here. Like
Right.
it's not just bees and flowers, but there is a bee and flower element to this in a way
Right.
that is interesting. And yeah, I don't know.
One of the
Uh,
things you
Tell me
said
about that.
earlier about like the uniqueness, it reminded me a lot of what's being said right now about fashion trends, which is I've been seeing a lot where it's like basically like there's like this thing happening right now where like the fashion trend cycle, which used to be like 20 years, is now becoming smaller and smaller and smaller to the point where it's like almost with the span of a month or even less or even like a couple of days. And so like there's this idea of like there won't necessarily be trends anymore at all, and personal fashion, like your personal taste and style and uniqueness, will reign king. And so like that reminded me when you said about like the uniqueness of like new uh art types of like I feel like we might see something similar where there's just like so much going on that there won't even be any like art trends or graphic design trends, or they'll be happening so quickly that it's like hard to tell what's even happening. I don't know.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be moving really fast. I think what's gonna happen is like the MidJourney aesthetic community will be moving so quickly and making stuff so amazing that will kind of like disconnect from society in a certain way. It's like you're either in it or you're out, It's like, bro, you don't even get the GeoCities kittens that are hip this week, Like
It already
it's
kind
all
of started.
It's all about GeoCities. Yeah, GeoCities is a great adjective. By the way, a lot of people haven't tried GeoCities aesthetics, but it works great. But like, yeah. But like the idea that like it'll be kind of like its own aesthetic community that kind of disconnects from the rest of the world. And then I think to some extent what happens is like things will leak out into the world, and they'll be like, "Oh my god, have you seen GeoCities cats from like that happens in MidJourney?" It's like, bro, that was like 3 years ago. But it's like taking over like New York Fashion Week or something, and everybody's GeoCities cats all of a sudden. Like probably it's going to be something weird like that. I would like to try to. I think one of the challenges is actually like how do we figure out how not just to like not just to kind of saying not just to increase the aesthetic accelerationism element of the community, but to also create more channels for the aesthetics to leak out into the world and influence the rest of the world.
Yeah. Like we could
Because
be
it'd
some like
be cool where everyone's like, it's like, what are you doing, man? It's like, oh, it's bee day. We're all being the bees to like choose the flowers for MidJourney. And bro, have you seen the GeoCities cats? Like, well, yeah, we could disconnect and it could get really weird. But I think everybody here does want the world to be inspired by what's happening here, and so
right.
trying to make sure that there's like a clear way to a clear ways for that to leak out. Something we probably need to help with.
Yeah. There's a TikTok trend a couple weeks ago that was like aesthetics you've never seen before, and then it would be like a MidJourney image of like just I don't know, vampire bubblecore. It's like that was really interesting.
Yeah.
Anyway, next question. We'll move on. What this is a little personal, but very good one, I think. Was been one of the most formative experiences of your life, or like what's one of the up there experiences that you think has formed who you are today, or helped form who you are today? Kind of a big question, I know.
I have a friend, was it Dennis Bushnell? He was like one of the chief scientists at NASA, and he had this saying that most of the interesting people he's met in his career attribute some key element of that interestingness to a period of solitude in their lives.
Hmm.
So for me, my period of solitude was really my when I was like young, I grew up in sort of an area of Florida that was like mostly old people. Like
Mm-hmm.
the median age in my town growing up was 65. And there were like it was an hour to get to school every day each way, sometimes more than that.
Wow.
Uh, and so like the idea of there being other kids is almost kind of weird to me. And so I
That's really
definitely spent like
sad.
most of my time around like old people and by myself and on the internet and like walking on the beach like late at night, like alone and just like thinking about the world. And so that definitely had a pretty profound effect on me.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and I think solitude does this thing where like um, I think it's possible that solitude helps you figure out who you are and gives you more confidence to be yourself.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the risks of like if you want to socialize your kid and make them around all the other kids, but there's a real risk that that everybody's just mimicking each other and nobody's themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so yeah, so I don't know, that was definitely something that like probably was a pretty big element of me. Like yeah, I was a pretty weird kid. Um but a lot of it was definitely not from me just being weird. It was me being by myself and like reading lots of books
Mm-hmm.
and like thinking like by myself late at night and just like being on my own a lot. And so that's a real thing. Um and like I would walk along the beach late at night. I would kind of walk into hotels like without staying there, and I would just like sit at the hot tub and like talk
Mm-hmm.
to other people at the hot tub. You know, and say like, "Where are you from?" Like Germany, and we'd talk about Germany. Or I'd like go to a bar, like there's a tiki bar I used to go to, and I would just like hang out with these like there was like a guy from there was a yeah like another guy there was a guy from like Europe who used to be in the military and he fled the military and I never really figured out what happened to him, but we talk about like all these strange life stories and like basically like my interactions were not with other kids. They were like with
Mm-hmm.
people visiting Florida from around the world and being by myself and talking to friends on the internet. So like it was pretty much always like internet people and like old people and being by myself and people on the beach. And that was sort of I think that's probably like a very unusual environment that probably had a pretty big effect on me.
Mm-hmm.
On a little things, but like that's probably like a larger environmental thing that like that went on for a long time. Um, so I don't really have a yeah, I mean and honestly probably like the first thing that got me into probably the first thing that actually got me into something kind of arty was I got into photography.
Oh, nice.
Um, and I started and I got a camera because I was spending so much time on the beach by myself
Mm-hmm.
that like I would then talk to somebody online. Like we kind of want to like kind of communicate to them like what my life was like or what I saw, like the things that I saw. Like I would see dust blown in from Africa, which actually hits the shores of of Florida sometimes, and it would kind of create lightning at night, and you'd see these lightning like bolts that were basically turned red by Sahara dust, kind of lighting up the horizons of a Florida beach with like a lighthouse that sweep these sort of like huge beams of light every 30 seconds across the horizon. And I'll be like, and there'd be like giant sea turtles coming up onto the beach to lay eggs at the same times. And I was trying to just like, I couldn't really I wasn't good at words like most young people aren't. And I couldn't communicate like what my life was. And so I got a camera and I started trying to do these sort of visual storytelling to kind of try to explain to you like, well, this is what my life is like. It's kind of a strange life. Yeah, and then I probably after getting good at Photoshop and cameras, I started doing graphic design and product design and like things like that. But it was sort of, probably started from this early stage of like having this sort of alone period of like this period of solitude and trying to communicate like what I was experiencing.
So would you say that art is what helped you find those connections to people that you wanted to have?
No, I think that it didn't. I think
Really?
art was mostly about like I think it was more about like communicating a sense of like experience and wonder that I had to other people so they could feel some element of it too. I think probably like one of my senses was that like this is a related story. So yeah, I was like on the beach once. I was like 14
Mm-hmm.
and I was kind of in I don't know if anybody here remembers what it was like being 14, but when you're 14, everything kind of sucks. It's like I'm on the beach, it's boring, like yeah, whatever. Like it's okay today, like it's a little warm, I guess, but like the water's okay.
Emo David.
And then this woman came out onto the beach, and there's like I don't know, she was I would like guess she was in her late 20s or something.
Mm-hmm.
So this woman came out onto the beach, and she like fell on her knees, and she started crying, and I
Oh
was
wow.
like, what's going on? And I looked at her, and she goes, "It's the ocean." I was like, I don't understand. And she said, I've never seen the ocean. Like I grew up in Colorado. I'm like 30 and I've never seen the ocean. Like there's so much water and look at the waves and like the sand and the shells. And she was having this really and like there's coconuts and palm trees. And she's like kind of having like this meltdown effectively.
Wow.
About the scene that I thought was like whatever. And I kind of had this moment where I was like, like this lady and me were both experiencing the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I'd rather experience it the way she experiences it than the way the shit 14-year-old is experiencing it right now. And I think at that moment, I think that was sort of part of what started that, where it was like that we kind of have that choice, about how we experience the world. And do we want to like experience the world as like something, as like somebody who's seen something for the first time, or as like that jaded 14-year-old who's probably spent already like whatever 10 years on the beach and whatever, who gives a shit,
Right.
And like they're both real, but like it's kind of your choice, of how you want to experience the world. And how you want to communicate the world, and how you want other people to see the world around you. And so I think that like when I started kind of like taking it in that way, and then I was on that beach at night, and there are those giant sea turtles, and the red lightning off the horizon, and the sweeps of lighthouses going across the sky. I was sort of like, this is some heavy shit, like, and no one else is going to see this. And I can't even really explain this. And like I want to give other people some sense of this thing that no one else is here to see. And I think that's probably what started it. And so like there's a sense of like I think like the sense to like this desire to like explore and to like experience and to appreciate and to share those things. And that's probably what drove me more on that art side. I think it's probably a little bit of it in the MidJourney now, is that they explore and see new
Mhm.
things, and share them, and to explore things together. And I like to say that, like, most of that as a kid was really by myself, and I did post pictures on like Flickr and DeviantArt, and people liked it and whatever. But it was a very like, it was still pretty solitary. At least I had a sense that, like, people were seeing my pictures on Flickr,
Right.
or whatever, and they could see, like, kind of get a sense of what the world was like. I could show it to friends, and they had some sense, even though they'd never be there. So, like, yeah, my life was mostly like things like that, and I had a lot of internet friends. I had like 2,000 friends on my buddy lists. AOL Instant Messenger and Yahoo Instant Messenger and MSN Instant Messenger and things like that.
Hmm.
Um,
Wow.
and I just had really weird friends that I would talk to about things. And like I would just sort of randomly message people like, "Hey, you're a math professor, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, who are you?" I'm like, "I'm 14 years old and I have questions." Do that on these messaging services. There was no boundaries. And I would go on and be like, "Who's the smartest person you know?" And they go, "Oh, it's Bob." And I'd say, "Can you introduce me to Bob?" I go, "Bob, who's the smartest person you know?" I go, "Oh, it's Jerry." And, "Hey, Jerry, who's the smartest you know?" "I don't really know." I was like, "Who do you know? Who knows some really smart people?" "Oh, it's Sydney." I'll go say, "Hey, who's the person you know?" And eventually I got to this person like the middle of the wilderness in like Canada. I'm like, "Who's the smartest person you know, Alex?" And he goes, "Me." Okay, shit, I hit the end. This is it. And then I just like asked them all of my questions. And that was like a thing that I would do as a kid. So I would just, yeah, that was sort of my life, was like talking to people and kind of spidering graphs and like thinking by myself late at night on the beach. So like I was the kind of kid who would like, yeah, I'd be like sitting at a hot tub like of a hotel I wasn't staying at late at night, listening to like Billie Holiday music about how like summer comes and all beauty ends too soon. I was kind of like emo as fuck, 16-year-old.
Most 14-year-olds.
Yeah, probably six. That's a 16-year-old David then. But like, yeah, and then I'd come back I'd come back to the tiki bar. I'd come back to the tiki bar the next day, and there's like an ambulance, and I'm like, "What's happening?" And they're like, "David, the dentist." I'm like, "What do you mean the dentist?" It's like, "He died." I'm like, "What do you mean he died?" It's like, "He was just sunbathing on one of the lawn chair on theirs, and he just died." And I'm like, "Holy shit, that was a guy I used to hang out with at the tiki bar. He just died. He's like an old guy. He just died there on the like on the." And I was like, "That's like a normal thing in Florida. Like that's, you have to deal with that." Like, like it's a normal thing. It's more normal to encounter somebody who died that used to know at the tiki bar than to meet another kid. I didn't like, it was, yeah. And like I think I remember at one point I asked my mom, I was like, "Mom, are kids kind of just like mirrors?" Like, "What do you
What?
mean?" Like, "I guess, like, yeah, they kind of reflect, like, are they like they kind of
Yeah.
reflect things, right? Like, yeah, they kind of reflect things, they're like what their parents think, they kind
Yeah,
of
that's
reflect things
true.
around." I'm like, "So mom, you're sending me to school with a bunch of other kids and it's all mirrors." And she was like, "What?" Like, "It's all mirrors, mom. It's just all mirrors. Like everything's mirrors. It's all reflecting nothing. There's nothing. There's nothing. It's all just mirrors." I was like having a
Oh my gosh.
like like the idea of going to a school with like all of these empty mirror people reflecting like their environment, but not actually like they're like freaking me out. Like what am I doing
Basically
going to
NPCs,
school?
but
I was
more
like,
horrifying.
"Please, mom, like let me just stay at home. Let me homeschool myself." Like, I was always trying to like this idea of like yeah. So it was actually probably like my favorite, like, yeah, I was I don't know. So there's like a lot of other things, like maybe that obviously like when I was little, yeah, I was always like asking why things weren't the way, like this way or that way. And then I think my parents were like, "Well, I don't know, David, why don't you make it that way? Maybe I will." So there's a little bit of that too. And so I was always thinking about how things could be different and how like maybe I could affect things, even if it was really unrealistic. And like I would wake my mom up in the middle of the night, like, "Mom, I figured out how to do something." She's like, "David, write it down, make an invention book," like shut me up, whatever, everything to get me not wake them up.
It
So
sounds like your mom probably has a lot of stories.
yeah, I think one of my favorite mom ones was like I was leaving the bathroom. I was like 3 or 4 years old. I don't remember. It was very young. And my mom looked down at me, and I was a tiny child, like absolutely tiny, way down. She goes, David, did you put the toilet seat down? Because she knew I didn't. You know, she was going to scowl me for it. And I looked all the way up at my mom, and I go, I have too much on my mind, mommy. And I walked past her. And she was like, what? Like, what do I say to that? He's 3. Like, what is on his mind? Like, what do I do? Like, what is this child, you know? And so, yeah, and so I think there was another time where my dad was like, my dad was like, David, you won second place at the state science fair. That was really good, but why'd you win 4th place at the school science fair? Because that's like the lower one, right? Like, what happened? I was like, well, Dad, my school teachers judged the school science fair. My dad goes, Dave, what do you mean? Like, are you fighting with your school teachers? Like, is everything okay? I literally said to my dad, like, no, Dad, it's okay. Everything's okay. There's a reason why my teachers are teaching at a middle school. David, you go to middle school. I'm like, yeah, it sucks, doesn't it? And my dad's like, he's too aware. He's too self-aware. What do I say to this? I can't get like that. There's nothing I can do for this kid. So like, I definitely had I was kind of an intense kid. I was very intense. If I seem intense now, I'm like way more chill now. I was so intense. I was a very intense kid.
Most kids
were
are.
like, yeah, well, they would no, well, yeah, I guess so. Yeah, my parents basically at some point just had to like, yeah. So I think maybe I was doubly intense because like I had no social pressure. I was mostly like by myself all the time. So there's a certain like rawness you get by being by yourself, I feel like.
Yeah, maybe I'm biased because I was very much like you as a kid. Slightly different experiences, but I don't know. Maybe that's not true. Maybe you're right.
I don't know. I think there was there was like a teacher who came to my parents like the school assignment said that you have to write 2 pages and have 5 pictures, but David wrote 5 pages and had 10 pictures. And my mom was like, look, lady, you're gonna have to make a choice now. You're either gonna fight with David, you know, every day for the next 2 years, or you're gonna learn to work with him. And I really think that for both of our sanities, we should try to figure out a way to work with him.
But that's like that aptitude is good. Like, I mean, would
like,
you say that
my parents did like defend me a bit?
Yeah, but like, wouldn't you also say that like aptitude's kind of gotten you where you are today? I mean, you've accomplished a lot.
I don't know. I think that I think that I think that everyone's capable of a lot, and the biggest reason why it doesn't happen is because we tell ourselves we can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I do think that more than like an enlightened adult or like a successful adult, I think of myself as a survived child.
Wow.
Yeah.
This is making me feel things. Yeah, I think it's one of those things too where if you're a kid like that, and I'm saying this is someone who is not the same but very similar, is when you have so many people throughout your life telling you like you're too much or you're doing too much, it's hard not to then believe that yourself as an adult. Wow, a lot of what you said, I did not expect it to be as endearing, and maybe endearing is the wrong word because it's somewhat sad, but also like I feel like a lot of people listening in right now probably relate a lot. I know I do. So it's interesting how having these experiences, like even though we are so isolated during these experiences, how we can still later then connect through having those experiences and relate, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, like we're all like everybody like everybody in the audience here has a couple 100 billion neurons. So they're all big and like deep and broad and vast, and like there's a lot that's going on in our lives, and yeah, I'm definitely just thankful to be a part of it for everyone. And um, I think part of the goal is to, again, figure out like not just what we can make, but like what we can be and like
Mm-hmm.
what people can be broadly. And like I think that's like the only like the big to me it's the only question that I really enjoy like trying to figure out is like what can people be, you know? All along the way I want to push what I can be, but I'm
Mm-hmm.
actually even more interested in what people can be broadly than me personally. Like I don't want to just be some like whatever super robot thing.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't like our, but like Um yeah, and I think part of that actually is like I don't know, like part of that also like honestly just like wants like like wants the world to be better, wants people to be better.
Mm-hmm.
But, like I mean, like there's probably can't make everything better immediately, right? So we
No.
have to kind of have to like find our people and our community. We have to empower ourselves, and then we have to like all go out into the world together and like
Mm-hmm.
make things. I feel like, and so I think that's part of this too, is to kind of like build new infrastructure that allows like new empowering humane infrastructure that
Mm-hmm.
allows us to go out and transform the world.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that's when I talk about like the different themes of Midjourney being like reflection, imagination, and coordination. It's because like if you want to remake something, you have to like reflect about who you are and what you want. You have to imagine about like what you can be, what things can be, that things
Mm-hmm.
can be different. And then at the end you have to coordinate to actually like with yourself, with others to get there. So right now, like Midjourney is mostly around this sort of pillar of imagination. But I think
Mm-hmm.
already we see every week people talk about stories about how it's a like deeply reflective medium
Mm-hmm.
for them, where they like to think in the Midjourney,
Mm-hmm.
or they
Mm-hmm.
like met some friend like oh I have nothing in common with the person except for that we're both really into Junji Ito or like
Mm-hmm.
alien Egyptian space pyramids, and then people like unite over like the sort of
Mm-hmm.
shared common aesthetic.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that like is also really powerful and important for like the future of like the sort of coordination of the world, is to kind of you know it's easy to talk about like finding friends or finding tribes, but I think that like finding people who you really share a deep aesthetic core with is like
Mm-hmm.
maybe one of the best things too. And it's sort of not obvious what that means, but I think that's something that everyone here was going to learn about over the next few months, over the next years. Like it's a thing that we're all just exploring. It's like, yeah, art therapy is another one. People said like how reflective, yeah, reflective like art therapy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
um, yeah, I don't know. I'm gonna do a lot of other things in those areas too, like as extra pillars. But definitely right now, like there's like such a huge opportunity in the sort of imagination side that
Mm-hmm.
kind of just like creating this sort of liquid imagination that swirls around the room. It makes mountains and trees and little animals and like runes, and trying to get a sense of that sort of super imaginative material and medium is I think like so it's kind of definitely like sucked me in like moth to a flame.
Right.
And but
I
there's I
th-
guess there's also like a seeking the transcendent thing. I don't know what that is, but there's a transcendent element to a lot of this too that's really compelling.
I
Where
think what's really amazing about Midjourney is that, and I'm an artist, right? I've been an artist my entire life. And like for example, and you said the art therapy thing. Like after my dad died, I managed to pull myself out of grief by slowly becoming more creative. But the thing about that is that I already had the skills and the technical abilities and also the practice of being creative, which is a whole other thing. I think creativity is something you have to learn or practice. But I already had those skills, and so I was able to use that to help myself, right? I think what Midjourney does is it now enables people who do not have those skills, like don't have those technical skills, to now experience those same healing and what you said of transcendence, like to experience the creating of art and like the euphoria that kind of comes from that and the healingness that kind of comes from that. And I think that's like that just like blows my mind, and it's so exciting because it's like now people can understand that maybe may not have been able to before. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of veering away, but just a thought.
Yeah, I agree.
So I have like maybe two more technical, shorter questions, but I'm gonna let you decide if you want me to ask those or
technical. There we go.
was that?
You do some technical.
Okay, I'll just ask you. Yeah.
I'm okay with. I'm not okay with some little technology.
Just a little bit. Just a little bit. Okay, I'll ask you like two. The first one is will creating 8x8 grids every second not burn up our monthly GPU time in a day or so, or is the model going to become more efficient?
We will either our goal is to make big batches the default without increasing the price, and then to have a cheaper price plan one day that doesn't do big grids. So I could imagine like maybe we'll have a $20 plan that only does 2x2 grids, but then the $30 plan does 8x8 grids by default or something. Like that's a bit of an extreme. Don't expect that immediately, but you can imagine a world where like there will be cheaper tiers that have restricted features, and then the current tiers will have bigger and bigger grids and bigger features. That's our goal. Now
Okay.
that maybe there'll be periods where it costs more money for the bigger grids, but then we're not going to change the default to big grids in a way that's going to be more expensive. If we change the default grid size, it will be the same price.
Okay. All right. Hold on. Trying to find the next question. I had it and now it's gone. Nope, it's gone. All right. I'm gonna let you go then and let somebody else get speaking time
Okey-dokey.
here. All right, it's good talk. Bye, David.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
I just want to say, I think the story you talked about you being a child, I think that was really interesting. I guess I'll just go to my questions. You know how when you first added the beta model, people kind of complained it wasn't very artistic. So now there are like test and test P models. Do you think you'll ever combine those models in the future so that you have just one model that's good at both of those things?
Yeah, we're gonna try to have one model next. I don't think we're not gonna do a test and test P again. I think we're just gonna have one model. And if you want it to be a full photo like, you'll probably just be able to put photo in the prompt and it'll look more photo like. So I'm currently I thought maybe they'd be two models or that we have different rules, but I'm leaning towards just being one model.
Is there an advantage to splitting them?
The main reason why I thought about splitting them was to make it so I could potentially add different filters or rules for the photo one.
Mm-hmm.
I think probably not going to do that. And also the previous model had some weirdness where it was like hard to make it into a good photo mode without us sort of hand tuning it for that. So the new ones don't do that. So I don't think there's a good reason to keep it separate. So I'm going to try to make it single.
How different is the test P model compared to the regular test one when it comes to like training?
It's the same training. We just have different parameters for it.
Oh, I see. So I think I'll talk about this last week, but I'm basically working on a prompt generation model, and I've been noticing after the test models, a lot of people have been using like a lot of buzzwords that doesn't make a big impact because the prompt is so long. Like, octane render, blah blah blah. Do you think it's a bad idea when a person makes like a good image using kind of like a bad prompt because it reinforces that kind of thing? For example, if someone spams like 200 tokens and they don't know that there's a token limit and they just keep doing it because they keep getting good images out of it.
I mean, I don't really know what to. And the most important thing is that people are having fun and making pictures they like. Personally, I try to start with the smallest number of words, and then have more words over time. And that's what I would encourage people to do. But I wouldn't make a rule against it. Like, I mean, it'd be kind of funny to have like a Twitter rule: 128 characters or less for the prompts, no long prompts. That'd be really
Yeah.
provocative. I don't think we're gonna do that, but that'd be kind of cool.
Like, does it really change your image if you add like 500 words into it?
Does, but it depends a little bit on which model. But I think that you can. I wouldn't encourage it. Like every word changes it a little, but it's not that like more words means it's better. That's more true for like a stable diffusion or a DALL-E, but for our version, it shouldn't need that. We have a more sophisticated prompting system.
Do you think you will change how the rating system works in the website?
Yeah, we're gonna change it significantly in the we're gonna build a new version that's like more work, but we will feel more comfortable giving like a free tier or bigger benefits around. So it's probably gonna look like a grid of images, and you're gonna like click the images you like in the order you like them. Be like, here's 3 images. Click the one you like the most, the one you like the second the most, the one you like the least. Here's 4 images because the one you like the most, second most, third most, fourth. And they'll just give you lots of those instead. And that I think will let us teach the algorithm more about images.
Do you think that will help reduce the amount of people kind of inflating the rankings in some Discord servers?
I don't know. I'm not. I don't know. I don't think we've had a lot of issues so far with that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting. I think I don't know. I don't know. We're gonna basically put more. We're gonna put a lot more safeties in the future. Like we may actually have like a. Like I think that if somebody wants to be a free user, we'll probably have like almost like a qualification exam, and like if at some point they start rating poorly, we'll like not let them use it for free. Like we'll also we'll grade their rankings more strictly.
Like an MG prompt mastery.
Yeah.
That's all I have for now. Thank you for having me. I think I could talk a bit about my models, but I could also go if you want me to.
I definitely let's try to because I probably only have another hour. Like, let me try to get through a bunch of people. Let me let's like I think we probably like I want to try to do like let everyone ask some questions. I've been ranting a lot, so I want to answer people's questions.
Okay,
Thank
I'll
you.
leave. Thank you.
Hey, I kind of have a two-part question. It was actually inspired by last week's kind of wouldn't say it was a complaint, but notice of an error, and I kind of interpreted their errors a little bit differently. How do you plan on balancing abstract versus error? Because some of the things that they mentioned when I looked at some of the pictures, some of them they were just abstract, not so much of an error. And then there were other times where it's clearly an error. Like one of the pictures I saw had 3 arms, but the arm wasn't actually attached to the torso, but it kind of tried to by kind of clipping it behind it. It kind of looked like that. But there's other cases where you end up with a hand with 8 fingers. That's not necessarily an error. That might be abstract.
Yeah, I think that I usually my example I give is that like a cat should have 4 legs, and the cat shouldn't have 2 legs or 1 leg or 3 legs. It should have 4 legs, and I think the hand should maybe sometimes a hand should have 6 fingers, but like most of the time, a hand should have 5.
Yeah, no, and I get that point, and I get what they were trying to say, but
Yeah.
how do you balance abstract versus error? How do you make that balance?
I would say that I think that things involving counting are the most normal number of a thing should be what it normally shows you. So if hands normally have 5 fingers, show you 5 hands. If people normally have 2 legs, it show you 2 legs. I think
Okay,
that's probably just what it should be. If you say
okay,
like abstract hand, then maybe it should change it to be more
okay,
fingers.
okay. So prompt.
Uh,
Okay,
I think it's
yeah,
sort of about the goal for us is to make people feel good when they see the images.
sure,
And so it's not well defined. Sometimes
yeah,
that means doing something abstract, and
yeah,
sometimes that means doing something that's more correct. So for
yeah.
example, if somebody says the word, if one of our tests that we use is asking it for images of imagination. And
Okay.
imagination, I think, should give it sort of a little bit of an abstract and beautiful image. It shouldn't
Mm-hmm.
just be the icon of a light bulb. An icon of a
Yeah.
light bulb, I think, would be fail. But for hands, so if you say hands and it like all the hands have 12 fingers, I think that's not ideal. Maybe if like half of the hands have 5, then half of them have 12, maybe that's kind of cool. But it shouldn't it should I think there's a balance between trying to be within expect ideally we would give people the images they expect, but like better than they expect.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah, no,
super
I'm
real.
tracking. Um,
So
which leads into the second half of the question.
mhm.
You answered most of it already through the other folks who were talking, asked questions about, um, oh, the word, vectoring and, fractal designs. You had said that it wasn't particularly good, but oddly enough, I've been kind of lurking through abstract, and uh, Renato LeBlanc has a lot of stuff that comes up under essentially without prompting it as as fractal designs and vectoring and how. Uh, how do you make that balance between, and I understand it's the computer, it's got to use math somewhere, and I get that. uh how do you balance hard rules versus soft rules?
We try to take a lot of statistics from the users, I would say, when it comes to aesthetics.
Okay,
We do have
okay,
some opinions ourselves. I would say that I try really hard not to use my own opinion, except when
okay,
it comes to like uncanny valley things.
okay.
So whenever it comes to what photos look like, I'm very opinionated. I never want I'm really anxious about making uncanny valley like dead zombie photos.
Yeah,
So that's where I probably have a heavy hand right now.
yeah,
I would say outside of that, I try really hard to let the user data guide it.
okay,
But there is definitely some element of us guiding it.
okay.
We try to not guide
uh,
it with words. Like some people think that we just put words on the end of the prompts, and that's not really what we're doing. We
no,
try really hard to. It's getting really. To be honest, it's getting almost too hard to tune our systems by hand.
yeah,
We almost have to go off
yeah,
user data.
yeah.
That's one of the reasons why
You
we're gonna have a free tier is because make it easier for us to tune it with users.
Makes sense. um Better, well, I'd say quicker way of, tuning it is through users. That makes sense. But sometimes I wonder if it's kind of using it as a crutch. Um, using fractals as a crutch because sometimes, especially with structures, uh, it it just kind of overdoes it, and sometimes it's clearly a computer generation, and other times it just blows it out of the water, and I'm sitting here going, "Well, that's a damn good job," and I would have been easily fooled. So,
You're
I,
asking how we. You're asking how we balance the system's sense of aesthetics over the person's. You're saying?
yeah, because sometimes it appears to me, and that's and I get that. That's just the way that it appears to me. Sometimes that MidJourney appears to have uh, kind of uses fractal designs as a crutch in abstract, and it is that because it just doesn't know what else to do, or what's going on? Because there are times it's prompted for it, like even further up in it, someone asked for lizard scales for a pattern. Obvious fractal design or a vector design, depending on how you want to define it. Cool, got it. Other times they don't even prompt for it, and it kind of defaults to it.
No, I'm not sure. I don't have an exact example of what you're talking about, so I can't say exactly. But I would say that I think in general it should have like a default style for people who don't know what style they want, but then
Okay.
it should always be very flexible to be whatever style you want it to be. And over
Okay.
time, we want to actually learn like custom styles for all the people.
Okay. All right. So
I think
it's really more about user input at this point. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, remember most people are using most people are I had one artist who said like how dare you, David, choose a default style? How could you do that? And I said, look, a lot of people are just typing in things like Maltese dog in heaven because their dog just died, and they shouldn't have to think really hard about exactly what style they want. Just give them a beautiful
Yeah.
picture of a Maltese dog
Yeah.
in heaven. You know?
That's not what I'm getting at. I'm not
Right.
saying that you guys are choosing one thing or another. I'm more so looking at it from the device might be doing something strange, and it appears to repeat.
It definitely has some biases right now, and we want to get those out of the system. I think that's something we're going to try to do when we have the next version of the rating system. That's like a lot more
Okay.
work.
Okay.
Because right now the problem with the rating system is that the rating system powers like both the website,
Mm-hmm.
like the front page of user images,
Yeah.
and but it also powers some of our algorithm stuff. And so it's like biasing our algorithm, but it's doing a great job at the front page. So we
Okay.
have to try to the only way to get more out of it than that is to just make it like 4 times more work. And we probably can't ask the current people with the current benefits to do 4 times more work. We definitely could ask a free wave of users to do more work, you know?
Okay. Yeah.
And so
All right.
that'll be the next version.
All right. I'll get out of your hair because he's already brought in someone else. So thank you very much and have a good day. I like the work.
Thank you so much.
Hey, David, can you hear me all right?
Hello, I can hear you.
Great. So quick question. It's a bit of a philosophical question. And it's really about MidJourney and the proliferation of AI generally and what they mean for the future of language. And I'm going to lead up to it with this. So my experience on MidJourney has been such where I find myself playing with descriptors and trying to figure out what they mean within MidJourney and how they affect, what the results will be. And my experience with that has been rather mind shifting. I'm finding my use of written language is becoming way more intentional as I try to find ways to say an image rather than describe an image, right? And one thing that I'm finding is that saying an image rather than describing an image, it's involving a certain kind of reverse intuition, right? So usually we're using language to describe an image either we see in real life or that we see in our heads, but now we're using language to create images we've not yet seen. And so this language it's becoming a set of brushes. It's inputs rather than outputs. But as we think outside of MidJourney, there's a proliferation. We think about Hugging Face and all these other platforms out there. There's going to be a proliferation of AI, and it means that the language around this stuff, it's a series of what I would call dialects, right? As we learn to interact with each of these technologies. And so I guess my question is, what does all this mean for the future of human language? And will MidJourney and other AI platforms enrich human language or utterly destroy it? And finally, do you essentially represent the end of humanity as we know it?
I usually think of it more of like words as like a form of magic. I think. Well, I don't really think in words, and this was a challenge to me because I used to kind of hate it. I used to kind of hate words, actually. I told my friend, I said, words feel like I'm an eagle in the sky and I'm passing by another eagle, and the only thing I can say to that eagle is screech. And that's all that my life can ever be, and that's all my experiences I can ever communicate, and it's like all I ever am are those terrible brief screeches against the wind in this empty sky, passing a bird that I'll never see again. And like I hate language for that reason. And my friend goes, David, that's kind of right, but at the same time, words are magic. Through a series of incantations and vibrations in the air, you can make people see things. You can make people believe things. You can change the way they live their lives. And it's just vibrations in the air. It's like nothing actually happening. It's like you're able to, it's all, and there's something really incredible about that. And so in some ways words are always insufficient, and that's important to understand, but also words are this sort of vast and powerful magic that actually are kind of the fabric of civilization itself. And so I think when he said that, I was like, all right, words are kind of cool. And then I started getting a lot better at words.
It's interesting that you put it that way. Ludwig Wittgenstein, the philosopher, once said, "The limits of my language means the limits of my world." So it's interesting that you think of language as kind of a form of structure of reality. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that we have to be risky because words are not reality. They're just vibrations in the air. And on one side, we have to be really careful about that there are sort of different forms of reality. There's the shared dream and there's the natural sublime. And within the shared dream, we're all dreamers and life is a dream. And through words, we can kind of invoke realities that become real. But then there's also the raw force of a tsunami that comes and crashes us against the cliffs and turns us into nothing. Or the tiger gazing at us through the grass. It cares nothing about what we feel. And the sort of natural sublime, it's really important to know which reality you're functioning in. Because when you're functioning around humans, words have the property of matter and reality. But then in other situations, words are literally just wind, and they have no substance at all. And so I think what's really interesting is that we're clearly humans that live in the sort of universe of the sublime, but the sort of the shared dream every century, every decade, every century is becoming bigger and bigger and more powerful. And right now, if a tsunami comes and it's here to crash us against the cliffs, our words mean nothing. but maybe one day that's not true. Because it seems like it won't be true. It seems like that as we sort of become more powerful as a civilization, our words and what we believe do have an increasing power over nature around us, whether it's through raw technology or some other forms of belief, like their and so there's like on one side, like words are reality, and then on the other side, words are completely insufficient and flat and wind. And I think it's interesting. I think part of the goal should be, I think, to evolve our language and to become better sort of wizards of the word. But then on the flip side, there's also the challenge, which is to sort of understand the wordless language and the sort of wordless the wordless universe, you know? Yeah, so like what's his name? Said like I said, like the limits of my language are the limits of my world. But then I think there's another one which is Zhuangzi said let's see, what did he say? He said, oh shoot, I had it. Where's my notes? He said something like great discriminations. Like he would say, I'm trying to find it. I had it. Oh no. I have like my notes of cool ones.
I'll throw out a cool one real quick while you're.
Oh, here you go. He goes. Here you go. I found it. He goes. The great way is not named. Great discriminations are not spoken. Great benevolence is not benevolence. Great modesty is not humble, and great daring does not attack. And you go. It's kind of going into like if the way is made clear, it's not the way. If discriminations are put into words, they don't suffice. It kind of goes to this whole thing about like on some level, like words are real, but also in some ways, like the greatest things, like the great discriminations are never spoken, and the greatest ways are never named. And then like these sort of like the greatest modesties are not humble. Like so that's interesting. Like there's like the words are also really fucked, and like so I think it's kind of it's back and forth, right? So I think we want to like make our language more powerful, and then I think we also want to become more aware of like the wordless world. And so I think that's why I would be pretty insistent on the long-term user interface of MidJourney, not just being words. Like the ability to put images in right now is also like with image prompts is really powerful.
Yeah.
But like I don't know, I definitely don't like. Yeah, that's a bit of maybe going back to the more simple elements of the question was like, I mean, words are language. You can speak with images too. You can speak with sort of stories, and stories can have all sorts of properties that are not just language. There's a lot of ways to communicate. Broadly speaking, like I do agree with like Werner Vinge, who generally feels that that there are a lot of great waves of change coming, and like whatever we are at the end of those change, like will not be like merely human as we are today. And like probably our languages will not be like merely language. Like I think the goal has to be to kind of like there's a goal of this transcendent thing, like and so like I don't know what that fully means. Obviously there's all the singularity, like all the transhumanism stuff, which is cool. Then on the flip side, like I also believe pretty strong. Like the reason why I like ancient Chinese literature, which is what I was quoting earlier, is like I think ancient Chinese literature. I think that people back then were actually better at words than we are today. Like when I think when the oral culture had to be better at words than literary culture, there were like fewer words back then, and you had less moments to say things, and you had to say things in the right way that people would remember because they couldn't read it again later. And so there's a lot of really interesting linguistics that I think that people actually were better with thousands of years ago than they were today. So like, yeah, we're gonna get better technology, but also there's like raw language things we could be better at too. That like literally are, just human things. So many interesting areas to go in. So yeah, I don't think we're like reaching the end of language. We might be reaching like the next level. Like I don't think like, maybe they'll be like I think we could have the goals. And what is the language of the next level of civilization? It might be different, but it's still language. I don't think we're going to transcend language as a concept for a while. I don't know when that's going to happen.
I think what I've been viscerally responding to is, the use of language in the context of this other type of intelligence that doesn't necessarily interpret things the way that a human might. And so I kind of feel like a seventh grader. Like I have to relearn what my words mean. And as I think about doing that over, like within, using AI within a business context, that's going to be a whole new learning. So there's these, learning algorithms that we have to train the AI, but then we also need to train ourselves on how to interact with it. I just think it's immensely fascinating.
Yeah, I definitely, there's like a co-evolutionary element too. Like we're learning language with the machine's learning language with us. I don't really know what it'll end up looking like. I mean, probably the goal of language is to have representational power and to have communication power. So, probably it will evolve and we will evolve and it'll, whatever at the end of it, I don't know if it's going to look like purely normal English. I personally really like it when people make up words with MidJourney. I like made up words. I like the idea of like making up new words that kind of make sense, but require like a nuanced understanding to interpret, like the flower punk stuff. But yeah, I don't know what it'll look like. I certainly shouldn't have double colons in it. Fuck that.
Right.
It shouldn't have like double colons. It shouldn't have double dashes. It shouldn't be any programming. There shouldn't be any like programming. Like it shouldn't be any. It shouldn't be any program. It shouldn't look like code. I feel very strongly that the future of language should not look like code.
So it should not be a haberdashery.
What?
I was making up a word. Anyway, I've got to run, but this has been super enlightening, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hey, David, thanks for having me. You mentioned earlier that the new model that you're working on, you like better, but off this top of language, better is such an ambiguous and vague term. I was wondering if you could maybe elaborate on that. Is it the language processing? Is it the stylistic interpretations of the model that you like better? What exactly do you like about it, and what can we expect in the next version?
It understands language a lot better. It can handle composites better, like multiple objects. It should be just more consistently good. Like it should be more consistent. I think it will. I think it potentially has like a new aesthetic quality to it, which is hard to describe. That you kind of see every time there's like a huge new model shift in AI. It has a new quality to it that is appealing and interesting, but that is hard to describe. It's not going to look the same as the old versions. It's going to look different. But the way it looks different is interesting and appealing and new and clearly richer, I think, than the older ones. And you can kind of tell when it gets richer, like it's got more stuff going on.
In terms of like the composition or the subjects themselves, or is it just more, I guess, humanistic?
I don't know if I could say the humanistic element. I mean, it does look more human. It has more details.
Mhm.
The details are more right. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I could give a really deep description yet. The easy things are like it's gonna understand language better, and it's gonna have bigger batches and it's faster, and we can have all the aspect ratios and be more correct in general. That's more, yeah. I don't know. We're not doing the big grids yet, so we're kind of at the early stage where we're just before doing the giant grids. So when we do the giant grids, I can say things a little bit easier, but we're like right before the giant grid stage, where we
Gotcha.
have like a small number of images and they clearly look different.
Good. Okay. Well, I was just kind of curious about what better meant to you. So thank you very much.
Yeah, I kind of like. It's not better in the way of like V2 to V3. It's a little bit more of like better in the way of like V1 to V2, but nobody remembers that. Like V1, well, V2.1 to V2 in some ways got worse too, but I don't think or maybe it feels a little bit like the like V3 versus test P. Like the test system is like it's not necessarily aesthetically better, but it is like smarter, you know?
Yeah,
It's not
absolutely.
necessarily creative, but it's smarter. This system is much smarter than the test and test P. So you can immediately see the smartness. I think I can make it more aesthetic than much. I think I can make it much more aesthetic than the test and test P. And I think it will be more aesthetic than the V3. So I think we'll have something that's more aesthetic and smarter. That's my hope. But I can't guarantee any of that yet. But that's kind of what I'm kind of good. It looks like it might be the version where we can get everything, which will be good. But we'll see. I don't know yet.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Mm-hmm.
Hello?
Hello.
Hi. I just have one question regarding the website. So I do understand what the map feature is about. It's like a map seeing other people, but what is it actually meant for? Because I don't know what to do with it.
The map's not really like a super supported feature right now. It's more of just like a thing that shows lots of people and where they are relative to each other. I think we're going to change it so that it's going to be a map of words rather than a map of people. And then the people will be on the map of words. So you'll see like everybody's hanging out at Cat Island right now. But oh my God, look, there's a migration to Dogtopia. And so we're going to change it at some point so that it's more built around words than people, but that people are migrating through the word space.
That sounds
Or
good.
we'll do something that involves where you can just see the image, where you can see images directly. We're going to change it. We're going to have a map, but we're going to change it significantly at some point. It's possible we should take it away right now, but I think sometimes people like it. It feels like a little aspirational, but it is starting to get confusing because it's becoming out of date. So there's
Okay.
a website like that we should probably remove, like the dictionary too. To be honest, it's a little too outdated.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Problem. Sorry for the confusion.
Don't worry.
Hey, you actually made me think of this separately, but it would be so cool at some point to have like a No Man's Sky level flying around and stars or words, and you can just like start flying around, seeing what happens, and images just generate. Different aside. The main thing is, I'm just wondering, when you say that's 8x8 grids, that sounds like 2.6 seconds of 24 frames second video, which I know you have been vocally against in the past just because of the timing. But I wonder if you're starting to change your mind on that, because it seems like more images might be more plausible, and also a lot of video stuff is happening in the world right now with AI. I can't hear you. Am I audible?
Can hear you, cannot hear David. Looks like the rest can't hear him either, so
Okay.
one moment.
Hello.
There you are.
Okay. Question was video. So I think that we're gonna do something with motion at some point. I think the question is like, how do we bring motion into the product in a way that's not gimmicky?
Yeah.
And I don't want to be offensive to anybody in the audience, but I think that it's clear right now that most of the video stuff is a little gimmicky. Like it's something that's cool because it's new, but it's like it doesn't have a timeless quality to it.
I don't know. Did you see?
And
Is it called Fat Gen or something? I can't remember what it was. The one besides Facebook and Google's offerings seemed pretty usable from a video side.
I don't like it still. I think they all have like a slimy, uncanny motion to them.
Okay, I can see that.
And they have a lot of like coherence issues from frame to frame, and
Mm-hmm.
like they don't feel serious. They're interesting but not serious. And then a lot of those are not going to be as fast as Arc stuff because you have to like the frames have to come sequentially.
Mm-hmm. I see.
But like I think I'm more likely to do like cinematograms where like it's a looping video where like the trees sway, but it's like kind of still otherwise, you know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
I think we could do that, and that would be charming and beautiful. But like something about this, like I think the text to video space is like mostly built off of totally unrealistic expectations, like make me a cat movie.
I do think you can do a surprising amount with having someone walking down the street and then adding, face reanimating on top of that if you can get the background to look semi-stable. But I also I appreciate your desire for it to look. Oh, he's gone.
Oh no, I think I was just
he's back.
again. I could hear you. Yeah, I don't really want to do the video editing stuff, like or the video filters. I'm like kind of against. I'm kind of like I think that we're not gonna. I don't think we're gonna do any image filters or video filters.
That's interesting because you. I saw you saw my tweet about a video camera that can replace things with AI, basically verbally re-say what you want the image to be in front of the camera and keep what you want or leave other things. So I kind of thought that was a confirmation that you were like, oh yeah, well, at some point it'd be cool to have, be able to go film in a real space, but replace what you want with AI.
Yeah, it's a cool idea. I just don't think we're gonna do it.
Bummer.
Like somebody else will do it. I think somebody else.
Okay.
Like, I have to hope that somebody else one day will do something besides us. You know?
Yeah.
Like it can't be my mission to do everything. But I think it's a cool idea. I think someone else will do it. I think my focus right now is more on like the exploring the nature of the absolute dream, where it's like all dream stuff and liquid imagination, and it's kind of coming from nothing. I think that's like really interesting. That's kind of what I'm enchanted by right now, and I think there's a huge risk of it's kind of going down this Adobe path where it's like anything that either involves a lot of tweaking or modifying a source material is enough to suck up a 50-person company forever.
Yeah.
And I don't think that's a good use. I don't think that's my mission. I think my mission is much more around like, what can I take 10 or 20 people and do something that's like completely crazy that would never happen on Earth otherwise. And if somebody else can do it, I want someone else to do it. Like, I'm not very ego driven. If someone else can do it, I don't want to do it. Like, I want someone else to do it. Someone else could definitely do the video editing one. And it'll probably be one of the million. There's a lot of startups that do that kind of stuff. So I hope they do a great job. But like, I know, for example, that nobody will create this like aesthetic accelerationism community, that no one's going to do like the social version of this thing. There's like, no one's going to do like this hyper consumer interface to like brainstorm and explore like the edges of aesthetic reality. Like no one's gonna. I would sooner build hardware. I'll build hardware before I do video editing because I know that nobody else will be able to build hardware in this space. But I have like a decade of experience in it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna do all sorts of things. I'm gonna do what I can do good. Like whatever I'm uniquely suited to do, I'm gonna do it.
Yeah, I don't think I'm specifically like, there's no reason that I care whether MidJourney or Stable Diffusion or anyone else does like a video gen, except for I've kind of bought into this concept that you've built of like these new style aesthetics, and that all my ratings are eventually going to build a style that's like uniquely something that's me, but also I never would have thought of otherwise, and to imagine being able to generate clips for my videos that are in this imaginary magical style that I believe is coming or whatever from from you know, talking about the rating system and stuff. I think that's kind of why MidJourney was specifically interesting. Of like, I'd love to have, whether it's me pointing a camera at someone and you know, not quite filtering it, but sort of filtering it, or like just generating individual clips of like the guy entering the room or whatever that I'm building a scene off of.
Maybe there'll be something one day, like instead of image prompts, it'll be like video prompts where it's like a dancing woman and like it creates like a dancing creature or something, but like takes the dancing elements of it, but without actually, it's more of like an image prompt than it is like a
Yeah.
init image.
Yeah, that sounds awesome to me.
I think I would
feel
be
love
down for
that.
that. Yeah, I think I'd be down for that. I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah.
But I think I would be down for that. But I'm definitely more in the like init image, like not image prompts versus a init image. I think if it's like an init image, like I'm not as into it. Like it's a photo filter. The idea of like taking the vibes or like the essence of something and using that as an ingredient of creation for another thing, that sounds cool.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, that's it for me. All right, good chatting with you, man.
Thank you.
All right. So first of all, I just want to say thank you from the pen and paper community. This AI is a godsend. I think most of us has gotten really tired of using old images. Oh, yeah, just great. Thank you for that. But my real question here is, going by the votes in micropolls, what is your feeling surrounding the ability to make variations, remaster upscales of other people's jobs, considering at the essence, the AI uses images from the web, you know, made by other people. There is a large part of the community that is against the use of their jobs and images being used. I mean, it feels a bit like there is a big double standard from a large part of the users of this AI. So yeah, I just wanted to hear what your thoughts is on this.
Yeah, I find that that's a really interesting framing. I think it's probably correct. I haven't thought of it before, so like I like that. Thank you for introducing a new framing to me. I don't think I don't think I have an immediate response to that. I think, except for that, that's an interesting framing, and I think it's correct. I There are some complexities I think around this conversation of like ownership and originality and training data, and you know, I think at the end of the day, something that people generally misunderstand is that like it doesn't matter if the AI is trained on your art or not. Somebody can still use your picture as an image prompt or an image variation. It's going to make something that looks the same. Like it literally doesn't matter if it's in the training data. It's
Exactly.
like it's the wrong battle to play. And so I think there's an element of that here too, which is like it doesn't matter if you hide your prompt. I can still use your image as an image prompt. Or like it doesn't matter if you don't want me to do a variation of your image. I could still use your image as an image prompt. And so there's like some element of that which I think is moot and dumb, and we shouldn't necessarily respect it because people can already take in your images using as image prompts. But I think there is another angle, which is like maybe variations that are very slight is not okay. I think that would be fair to say that like if the AI generates an image that looks really similar, like really, really similar to a real image, that's also probably not okay. And so it's really probably more about a degree of similarity than it is about like being inspired by somebody else's art. And I think that's actually like the legal, you know, in terms of legal, I think that's the legal thing too, actually, you know? Like there's already a lot of case law around like how you can't just like take somebody's picture and put a line on top and say you made it a new thing. But if you transform it enough, then you say it's like transformative use or it's like significantly different, you know?
Yes.
So
I
it's kind of
also I've had a bit of a talk up in the philosophy channel about all of this, and we also sort of got into the topic about are we making sure that the users actually understand you know, both the licensing as in, what license or copyright do you have on images that you yourself create, and just generally the rules for it, because it feels like there's a lot of users that has entered this AI community, started using the AI, just like in the good old days of bulletin boards. They completely ignores all the rules. They don't even read them, perhaps skim them, but they don't really read them or understand them. They just head right into using it. It might be an idea to just say, hey, do remember we have these yada yada.
Yeah, I think I'm just we might just do a thing where, like, if people vary each other's jobs, it'll be more like an image prompt instead of like the current variation job. We might just like make it a little different. So I know, like, it's possible that like remixing and variations are fair game, but it has to look more obviously different. You know, like maybe I should be able to say I want to take a variation of this other person's job, but it'll have the same composition. But like it's gonna look like there'll be something different about it. I don't know. I have to like think about exactly, like, there's some. It's not really about like legally we can do whatever we want, but like it's not really about legally. It's about like what do people feel, and so I think
It's
there's
the moral of it.
exercise. What's that?
It's the moral.
I don't even. Um, I mean, from a moral standpoint, it's pretty easy to say that most people here are not like super ownership heavy of their stuff. They're just having fun, you know.
True.
And so I think from that standpoint you could do it, but I think that it's less about. I think it's an interesting. I think it's more of a feeling question, like what are the different possibilities and how people feel about the different possibilities, and then I'm gonna have to just experiment with it. But I don't think I'm just gonna like take the current variations and let anybody do variations anybody else's jobs.
I will say that I think that at least as considering we're getting a new website and yada yada, it might be a good idea to keep that history. For any job you have the history of what images came before this, and if we do get the ability to create variations and other elements of other people's jobs, I think it would be great to keep that history. So you can say, I didn't come up with this I derived from X person's work.
Yeah, I'm not. I don't think I'm gonna have people varying other people's jobs quite like it does like in the current setting. I don't think it's a huge. I don't think we're gonna go in that direction. I'm trying to figure out a different direction we can go in that still makes things open but doesn't make people like paranoid or something. So I'm like trying. I think the poll made me just say I have to think about this more, and that there's obviously an element of this which is clearly good. There's obviously an element of this that like makes people emotional, and so I should whenever like I think it's not about what's right or wrong. It's just like acknowledging that emotions are real and that there are real emotions there, and then trying to use our intellects, not to say whether emotions are right or wrong or hypocritical or legal, but to instead use our intellects to say, what is something we can do to make people feel good instead of bad? And so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I'm just trying to think about what are the possibilities that make people feel good, you know?
Mm-hmm. Well, all right. That's all I have.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna like take a hammer to the current system and like make it so everybody can do everything that everybody else is like that. So, like I see that there's clearly some sensitivity there. I think there's an argument for me taking a hammer to it, but I don't think it makes sense for me to do. I think instead it makes sense for me to think really hard about something that makes everybody excited. You know, basically, I think the question is always, what can we do that makes everyone excited? And so I'm trying to just think about like what can that's my key question. Not like how do I'm not gonna bash. I'm not gonna put my foot down on things unless it's like the hyper gore thing where everybody wants to make like tons of gore on everything, and then I'm like, yeah, not this. Yeah, it takes a lot for me to put my foot down. So this is not a thing where I'm gonna put my foot down. It's where I'm gonna think it's a challenge for me to come up with something that will make people excited. You know?
All right. Yes, but thank you for the answers, and do remember to hydrate.
Thank you.
Hi there.
Hello.
Hey, I had a couple questions. The first one was just kind of about like general bugs. Like, um, do you intend to fix kind of like smaller issues while you're working on big models, or is the plan more to kind of group large changes together? The reason I ask is there's an issue where if you keep v-rolling an image, like let's say you're kind of trying to push it in a direction, or you were talking about remixing last week, like if you could go from one image to another and transition over that, there's an issue where the image like gets tinted, more and more purple or red or whatever over time, especially in the test engine. um, is that going to be like part of the new model update, or will smaller bugs like that be fixed kind of incrementally?
Unfortunately, we're not going to go back and fix any bugs in the current models. We are 100%
Gotcha.
focused on the models.
Yep.
And it's mainly about like focusing on things that make things 10x, like focusing on 10x improvements.
Yep.
And not letting ourselves be held back by like testing systems,
Mm-hmm.
We never really meant for variations to be used in really deep holes like the current system.
Yeah.
We don't really test it. We don't really spend a lot of time on it. It's good that people like it, but I don't know if future versions will have the same problems or not. Like I literally, because the future versions work differently, potentially. I don't know if any of the current problems are relevant or not to future versions. Like, and so in general, we kind of have to take a step back and say like, what can we do that will definitely make everything better? Like, or that'll make as many things better as possible. And then just try to focus on that. Because in a world where we try to solve every edge case, we will basically fail. And the only way to succeed is to kind of focus on the big steps and make the biggest, boldest steps we can. Because the big steps are actually not 10 times harder than the small steps.
Yeah.
Like
I've had that
3
experience.
times.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's just an interesting way that this stuff turns out. And that just seems to be how it is.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair. Second question is about, I guess it's kind of like a prompt craft question, related to like language use. You guys were talking about language and this kind of being like a new language, or learning how this new media thinks or whatever. But when you prompt something like artwork by, and then you list several artists, or looks like, because you're kind of trying to like blend people, how does that actually work kind of in a technical sense? Like, is it sort of inferring that really you mean artwork by this person and artwork by this person and artwork by this person, or is it more nuanced under the hood? You know what I mean? Like there's some people in sort of the prompt craft circle, if you will, who think that like if you use in the style of, it has a different weight than just by this person, or if you're referencing several names, it seems like it blends them together, but in a way that sometimes feels ambiguous. So I don't know, just thought might be helpful to learn more about how that part works.
With the V3 model, that stuff shouldn't matter. But with the test and test P model, the way it like looks at words is really bad, and it's unpredictable, and I can't tell you how it ever works. It's like always going to be unpredictable. That's like it's one of the many reasons why we're going to like completely trash the test P models. There's no way to fix it. So we have to just make a new version of that like has a better way of reading language, like the V3 one. So the new version actually has that fixed already. It looks pretty good. But with the V3, yeah, it doesn't matter whether you say in the style of or by. If you just add a lot of artist names, it's kind of like the names have some area of the data space, and it kind of averages them together in some way, depending on like which ones are more familiar to the system. And I think in the test and test P1, when you use lots of artist names, it's going to be unpredictable, where it'll like randomly hone in on certain names over other names, and it will like sometimes ignore some names, and then order will matter. So the test is really bad. All the rule, there's basically no way to have an intuition, I think, for that system. It's it has like a way, it has a special system that lets it like hone in on words, and the way it hones in on words is like way too aggressive and chaotic, and it's basically I think it's a dead end. So that's why the next version will be really clean, and hopefully, yeah, more intuitive and sort of like, or it shouldn't matter. It should be generally insensitive to order, and it should be pretty consistent on using all of the words. I think that's sort of how it should be.
Yeah, that sounds exciting. Yeah, there's a couple, like I've been doing a lot of character concept art for the VR game I'm developing, and I've been trying to get characters that look like they're kind of lower poly, but I can't prompt low poly directly, because when I do that, it looks terrible. Like there's all sorts of tessellation where there shouldn't be, and like if I were to be art directing a production artist who produced that kind of work, I would be like, no, like this is a really lazy way to do low poly, but there's like a prompt phrase I can use that kind of blends two styles, and then if I stop it like in the 70s or so, then it's almost like controlling the bevel, that you get among the edges of the polygons and stuff. And so it's still very finicky, so yeah, that'd be great if it was more controllable and that kind of thing.
Honestly, I think there's probably a way to get it to do low poly, but I don't know. So this might be a good area for the prompt craft forums.
Yeah, I mean, I've got it figured out, but it was very difficult, and it's like arcane knowledge, I have to be super tricky, and yeah, it's tough, but
I'm hoping in the future, the new version definitely understands words better, so it might just work better when you ask it for that stuff, but I literally don't know.
Cool. Okay. And then I just had one more question. With the like organizing images, there are several of us who have like more than 20,000 images generated, and it can be unwieldy trying to organize everything. And I know, you've talked about different ways to group them or whatever. But in terms of like cleaning up jobs that you don't want, because you have all these images, is that going to be a feature that's coming, like being able to delete jobs on the website more easily?
Last time we did that, people like literally spent 12 hours in their browser, like deleting like 10,000 images. And I felt like both physically unhealthy and spiritually unhealthy. So I don't necessarily want to have that. I do think we're going to do something where like you can pick the images you like and you can have collections, and then those things are like what are on your profile, and then there might be like a raw feed that just shows all the images on it.
Okay.
I think that's what we're currently planning on, is like there's going to be like a raw feed, and there's going to be collections, and then there's going to be like favorites, and then if you have collections and favorites, that's what's going to show up on the profile, but there'll be like a raw feed button. And then if you don't want and then if you don't do that, it'll just be the raw feed as is. So I think that's what we're currently imagining.
Cool. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. I mean, for me, the reason why I would spend 12 hours on the website and feel bad about my existential state would be that doing it the other way would require like 14 or 16 hours, and then I would feel even worse about my existential state. So right now it's like some of those things feel like the least worst thing, you know. So that's why I was asking is all. So
I mean, why are you trying to delete 10,000 pictures? It's because like because you just like
it's, I mean, you're right. It's purely like for the sake of making it easier to browse the images. Because you know, there's like you try, like I kind of have like prompt templates that I've developed and sort of a line of, you know, I'll find, I'm trying to like hone in on a prompt I like, and then when I like it, I'll generate, you know, 400 images of it or whatever. And or if it's a really good prompt, it'll be like 5,000, I think is one of my prompts or something. But then in the experiments leading up to that, they're all failed experiments, so there's really no value. But then when it comes to my feed, because I have limited options for how to view it, how to filter it, I can't like emoji react to certain images in Discord and then filter by those emojis on the website, for example. Or, you know, like there's just no ways to tag stuff. And like I said, if I have a prompt with like 1,000 images that I've generated, there might be ones that I like more than others. I can rate my own images, but then if I have some other way that I want to categorize them, you know, like the style varies slightly based on the prompt, that same prompt. So then if there are certain images that lean more in one style versus the other, I could tag them, you know, just different ways to organize. Or if there's ones that I definitely don't like, that I just see no value in, then I might want to get rid of them. But yeah, you're right. It's definitely just an organizational thing, being able to quickly look through things that are valuable. So
yeah. So what we're more likely to do then is make it so you can more easily pick out the ones you like and put them in collections, rather than to have a power tool for deleting images.
Yep.
And
That makes
so
sense.
that's what I'm thinking about right now. Is because like basically it's like either people are trying to collect the ones they like, or they're trying to just delete all their history. And I think that like deleting all the history is a little not necessarily as interesting, but collecting the ones that you'd like is very normal. And the next version of the website already has that built in. We just haven't deployed it yet. So I don't know when that's going to go up. It might be a little while, but like it's already implemented as a next feature.
Cool. All right. Yeah, that's all I had for questions. Yeah, I wanted to say, listening back to your talk about you know, working physically and kind of the shop motif, I think that's awesome. I've had that like exact same thought you know, a few years back about programming. I think programming is awful, and it's like still stuck in this terrible 70s and 80s mindset. And it just drives me crazy that IDEs still look the same like decades later. I think it's ridiculous. And so, yeah, I think about the same thing, about how the idea of being like a craftsman with a shop where you walk from place to place, or otherwise move physically around, interacting with like specialized tools that are extremely good, you know, at a specific thing, and you kind of move freely between them, and you just feel engaged and appreciative of the specialty of those specific tools. So I think that's awesome, and I can't wait to see you know, what you do, what you prototype with those. So yeah, thank you.
Yeah, we're definitely gonna try to do something in that direction. That's like my biggest it's my biggest concern about pushing MidJourney without like any change, is basically just like making sure that like would be the sort of the raw non-physicality of it, and trying to bring that back is like really important. I'm actually starting to buy. We bought some hardware this week to try to start prototyping things, and I'm hiring hardware engineers. If anybody in the audience is a hardware engineer, we will probably boot up a small hardware lab soon.
Yeah, I think that's really important, because so much of our cognitive faculties are connected to our physical body, you know? So like when we're just sitting scrunched up at a desk, like moving our fingers, it just feels like a total waste of cognitive power. You know, there's like tens of percents of our brain that are just sitting there unutilized. So yeah, I think that's great that you're doing that.
I'm also like, I'm pretty confident also, like we're going to make more and more pictures. Like there isn't any good way to do 10,000 pictures with a mouse, a keyboard, or a smartphone. Like if you're a photographer, you know, Like it's already pretty miserable, and then like the raw speed at which people are going to pump through images just to make something is, like it's a real problem from a raw. Like how do you do that, right?
Yeah, totally. I find myself like, I've organized maybe 6,000 of my images or something, but I've generated 22,000, and I just keep like wanting to make new images more than I want to organize my old ones. So yeah, that's a really valid point.
Yeah, I've thought about maybe moving toward like an ephemeral model where like all the images disappear unless you keep them. But I'm a little scared to do that. That's like my only other idea. Like it's either automatic organization, ephemeral, like everything disappears unless you keep it, or like throw everything public and then like have people explicitly organize if they care. I'm trying to figure that. Like, it's the organization's problem is also like it's an open question, But
Yeah.
we'll definitely come up with something good there because it is a real long-term challenge. Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, thank you. That's all I had. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Hello.
Hello.
Can anyone hear me?
Yep. Can you hear me?
Yep. Okay. So my question is about the new model. While you've been saying that it's smarter and will be taking all of the prompt into account, will it still give us the element of surprise, which is absolutely the best part about working with MidJourney? And the background of that is I've got an ongoing project where I give MidJourney almost identical versions of the same prompts every day, and frequently I get some really similar results, but there's always some variation, and on a really exciting day, I get something that I just absolutely didn't see coming. And so that's the image I end up going with. And so that's what I'm hoping to see more of or continuing with the new model.
Which one do you use the most right now, the V3 or the test one?
I use V3 and then remaster it. That's what I've been doing lately, but that's in the last month.
Yeah. I think the new versions will be more variable than V3.
Oh, good.
And I'm trying to make them like I think eventually I want to make them much crazier than test P or V3. But I think as the batches become bigger, I can make them crazier. Because right now, if you only get 4 pictures, and if I make 2 of them crazy, it might be bad sometimes. Whereas if I give you like an 8x8 grid, then it's truly okay if like 20 of those are crazy, and so that's one of the biggest reasons why I like the big grids, because I can really up my ratio of crazy on there. So that way I'm hoping that I can eventually have it much more surprising all the time.
As long as once you get the grid, and then you're able to upscale it and it actually looks like the tiny grid image that you liked so much, because that's been an issue in the last 3 days, which in MidJourney time is an epoch. But
Yeah, we're definitely going to have better and better upscalers. I don't think we're probably going to keep the current upscalers for the next version, but then we might do a big pass on the upscalers to make them better. We know we can make them a lot better. It's just, our bigger problem right now is that the V3 and test versions together at the same time, and neither of them are quite what we want. Do you want to like have another version that unifies that first, and then push really hard on the new upscaler?
okay, well, thanks. That pretty much answers all of the pressing questions I have for now. I could spend another hour talking about all of my personal projects because I've got some really neat ones, but everybody is starving right now, so thank you. And that's it.
We have a lot more H&G there.
Yep.
How many,
Don't go
how
on.
many questions do we have?
That was the last one that
roughly-
I had queued up, but we have a few more I could bring up if you want.
Yeah, we'll do a few more. I feel a little bit more energy. Like not maybe another 10, 20 minutes. I will see, but we can get a few more in. I feel if I can actually get through. You think we can get through everyone? Is that what you're saying, or that there's a huge? Those are like.
There are a lot of questions overall. Most of them are text, but there are a few more with voice that want to come up.
We can do the voice ones, and then we can do some text ones too, and then maybe we'll call it a success. We got through a ton of questions then.
All right. Let me just get them actually queued up because I did not have them ready. I thought we were about to end.
We could do some text ones too. Yeah, I was thinking of it, but I think I'll do another 15 minutes. I think just if I can get through extras.
All right.
I'll invite myself up so I can give Chaos a minute to ask some text ones. Hold on, no, I don't even have it up. Hold on. There we go. Okay, found it. Have to open it. Chaos, if you can get somebody up now, do it. I just wanted to give you a second.
Hello.
There you go.
Dear Chaos, thank you very much for putting me on. Hello, David. Hello, all other lessons. And my name is Lata. I have a question regarding the history of the project. As I can see now, we are facing some kind of Cambrian explosion of AI generators, which are friendly to users and not asking us to show our developing or coding skills. However, as it was mentioned before, MidJourney is exceptional. How did you? Why do you, why do you have such a great model? Why it does those things that why it surprises us? Do you have any ideas on why your project get the most creative AI in the world?
I mean, the biggest thing is that like you can kind of at first it might be confusing, like why is this different? Like why is this company this way? Why is this company this way? And the easiest way to understand is just that whatever anybody is good at is probably what they care about. And so for us, we really don't want the model to like replace artists or just to make look fake photos. We want it to be a new creative medium to push the boundaries of the aesthetic world. And so we care a lot about that when we are making it. And I think that shows up in the images that come out of it. And obviously it can be better. But,
are you tuning it during do you fine tune it into creative into being creative, or for example, did you teach did you collect the first data sets from ArtStation instead of taking it from Flickr?
No, we don't train the data on it. We don't do anything. There's some people think that the reason why it looks more artistic is because we train on more artist data, and that's just to set the record straight. It's not true. We don't train on any extra art data for our stuff. We just tune it really thoughtfully, like as ourselves, and then we use the user data to understand what people find to be beautiful. And we try to do the kind of like a quantitative aesthetic theory where we try to like understand the science of like beauty. And like we watch people and see how they use it and try to understand what they want and like what they find beautiful. And we just kind of refine over and over again based off the people and the data and our own beliefs. And we haven't done anything like train on more art yet. I think if we do train on more art, the goal won't be to train on art to be better at art, but I would like to train on more things that like it doesn't know about. Like it'd be cool if it had more knowledge of like different types of film and like old movies, like black and white old movies or like some comic books. Like there's lots of things it just doesn't have knowledge of. And so we want to give it knowledge of things so people feel like they're not limited, but we're not really, we're not like, all the artistic stuff comes from like, I think the tuning on top per se.
If I may, for example, there is a prompt, and we ask MidJourney to draw a bunch of animals who are watching a TV. And at some point, on some iteration, it starts to put the same animals into the into the TV. It changes, and it's somehow like it feels very creative idea to do this, and somehow it's like it's not like nothing is final for like there is no like final image MidJourney provides. If you iterate, it will give you, I don't know what.
Yeah, part of that is like the way we have it read words, where it kind of like averages the words together in ways that are kind of like delightful to humans.
Mm-hmm.
And that is like general aesthetic things that we're trying to make it like pretty. And then some of them are like user interface things where variations give you like control to go into different directions without having to have words for it. I think it's a lot of little micro decisions that come together based on our values that make it really good at what it is.
Well, do you think that the start process to train AI for what? So you started from the same data sets as Stable AI or DALI?
Yeah, we're not really doing any special data stuff, but we are doing a lot of other special stuff on top. I don't think the data is that important. I think people are a lot of misunderstanding about how AI works. And it's not really about the data as much as it is about like the error function almost, like what is good. And like it's less about the data because the data is there to just teach it what images look like. What's more important is how you tell something is good or bad. Like, is this a good picture? Is this not a good picture? And I think everybody else is trying to make the AIs make fake photos or fake art, whereas for us, we're kind of trying to have it look like something different. And so our system is not trying to make it look like the data. It's trying to look like something else. And so because of that, I think it's much more pleasant in a lot of ways. And I think if the goal is to make fake art, you want it to have as much art in there as possible. But because we're not trying to do that, it's just not that important for our current system. I think we're good. So it's kind of like because we want it to look like new things, it's much more interesting to us to look at like what people are making with it and whether they like it or not. So right now, most of our new data comes from the community, not from anything on the internet.
Thank you very much. I am actually really scared about that and wondering where this will bring this beautiful instrument. But thank you.
I don't know if you were here for the flower and the bee thing, but it's like it's like the flowers try to be beautiful for the bees, but the bees
Totally. This is like that we learn MidJourney language and MidJourney learns our language, and this is why we like each other so much.
But it worked out well for the flowers and the bees, so it probably is good for us.
Okay.
I hope so.
Thank you. Thank you. Really brilliant work.
Of course.
Okay. Sorry about earlier. I thought I had my my sheet up, and I guess I didn't. I have some quick questions for you from the text. Then I have to go. So let's just get them out. First one, how many images does it require to train MidJourney for a specific style?
We don't know.
We don't know. Probably at least one.
Yeah. Well, no. You could give it an image prompt of something it's never seen before, and it'll grab the style from it.
Interesting. Okay, well, that's actually interesting. All right. Next question then. How
Also,
does
sometimes it's seen artist names, but never their images. So we found one situation where like it had never seen the artist image before, but it saw that the artist's name was usually around words like zombies. And so it like thought that that artist name like meant more zombie-like pictures, but it never saw one before. So there's
Interesting.
all sorts of elements of that where it could, yeah, it might literally have never seen something before.
That's really interesting because whenever I put in my username, Fnuckle, I tend to get these like weird blobby black birds, kind of like crows or something. And I've always wondered why. So maybe it's just making that up. I don't know.
Yeah, it makes all sorts of stuff up. You can make lots of made-up words.
Interesting. Okay. Well, next question. How does MidJourney intend to address languages outside of English?
We're going to try to train some multilingual models, and we'll probably try to use some translation services on the front too.
That's interesting. That's really fun. Okay. What kind of languages do you think, or can I ask you that?
Chinese, Japanese, and Korean are probably the next ones we're looking at.
Okay. Cool. All right. Not much to say to that, so I'll just go to the next question. One person asks if there will be an ability to do like a mass production feature, like generating 1K images at once from the same prompt.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay,
I like
cool.
doing that. I've done that many times. It's really fun.
Yeah, I always think about that one time and you're like, I generated like 40K cyberpunk images at once. And that's where you got the whole like AI image creations like water thing. And I'm just like even being, in MidJourney for as long as I have, like that still just breaks my brain a little bit to think about. Whew, man.
Yep.
Okay, next question. Would there be a way to train AI on video to improve its still images? So like would seeing hands in motion help it better understand hands, for example?
Probably. We might do that at some point, but we're not ready to yet.
Okay. All right, I have maybe two, I'll do two more. Could there be a blog or some sort of post in Discord that gives bullet points from the office hours?
If somebody wants to volunteer to take notes, we could potentially release notes from the talks.
Okay. And then the last
I
one's
would
kind
feel
of
like we could have like a Google Doc where people like can all type into the Google Doc with notes, then somebody afterward could volunteer to clean it up.
yeah, I was thinking that could make an interesting newsletter too. If you just maybe not bullet points, but kind of like an overview of what was being talked about this week.
Yeah.
Okay, last question. Hold on, I'm trying to choose the one. Oh, that's right. One person asked if there was a way other than reverse Google image searching, that they could check for like the uniqueness of their image. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't think the reverse Google image search is probably the best way to do it. I don't
Mhm.
really know what would be better than that.
Okay.
That's like
Well,
the best way to search the internet.
yep. Well, these are all easy questions with easy answers, and I will talk to you next week.
All right. Well, I'm happy we got to answer those people. Bye. And do we want to call anybody else up for?
We've got one person up right now waiting.
All right. Hello.
Hello. So I was wondering, I often try to do images of the same style, and it's really hard to continue a style through multiple prompts if you find a style you like. So I know you were talking about in previous update or chats about having like ways to save like vibes and carry those through. But is there gonna be a way to kind of keep your images more consistent if you find a style you like?
Have you tried using them? Have you tried using the image of the style you like as an image prompt?
I have. It doesn't work that well. I went from like making everyone really blocky, and kind of taking away. It took the wrong elements of the image to keep the style, I guess, is the best way to say that.
We are going to try to do something at some point that like tries to go from images back to words. So you might be able to like extract the styles out with words at some point.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how else to do it because it's like it's got some weird style in it. You got to get it out either with an image prompt or with words, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely agree that we've thought about having these like style anchors. We could say I want the style of this image, but nothing else. Those are like so the anchors could do it too, but it might take a little while to do any of those features. But those are all things we're looking at. It's unusual. It's a challenging problem when you have a style you like, but there's no words for it.
Yeah.
The image prompts don't work.
Yeah,
You could
well,
try
I mean,
putting it
like,
up in the prompt craft room and make it a challenge. Make
so
it a style. That could be fun.
well, the thing is, like, you can get a variable style of like we have these 6 artists all use this style, and that's pretty clear. But then for some, you can almost overpower that prompt by describing what you want in the image more, right? Like, so if you just say, I want a girl by these 6 artists, you're pretty reliably going to get that style. But as soon as you start to describe the girl more, I think you're outweighing the artists to the point where you're not getting the consistent style anymore, right?
It might be better in V3 than the test one. The test one has a lot of difficulties in weighing words, but the next version should do better at that too. The next version should be able to handle a lot more words.
Okay. Cool. And then that's all I have.
Okay.
Well, yeah, but thank you for taking the time to
Thank
answer
you.
it.
Yeah, I would encourage you to post some things in the prompt craft channel if you want. Like, if people could try to reverse engineer how to make the style. It could be. I think there are probably some people who might have fun with that.
Cool. Yeah, I'll definitely ask around.
All right. So is that it for the day, Ancient?
We can do one more if you want, or you can end now. Up to you.
Okay, one more. What do they call that? Unamos.
Hello,
Hello.
it's me again.
Hello.
So I want to talk a bit about kind of automation of prompts. So I think we talked about this before, but I'm essentially building a GPT model on a lot of prompts, and I'm trying to kind of automate and give people ideas because I see some people who are like they make a really good image and then they make like 1,000 variations of it, and they're like, "Oh, I'm out of ideas. I don't know what to do." And I was thinking maybe I could make something helpful. So I trained a bunch of models, and yeah. So I trained one on the new test stuff, and I had to filter it a lot because it was very biased. You probably know about it, like the bias. Did you have any comments on prompt automation, I guess?
I don't think I'm as. I think we're not focused on prompt automation, but we are focused on trying to figure out how to inspire people. And so we're trying to do a thing at some point where we recommend images to people better, and we think that by recommending images to them, they'll be more inspired to make images. But we don't fully know what these things are going to feel like. So part of it is just trying things out, you know?
Yeah, I've been particularly trying to quantify things like, when someone says the future of the past, like that is kind of abstract, and I don't know how to quantify it. Like I want to try to make a model that can consistently generate things like that. It's kind of weird and never been thought of before, like things that can be generated now that are kind of abstract, but no one has probably thought of it before.
Yeah, I'm very interested in exploring like new things that are totally weird. I could imagine a world where we try to like do some automation to find the weirdest thing that's never been seen and then to give people the words for it. That'd be fun. I've thought about doing this where we just try random words. Like words aren't even real words. Like just fake words and make a million images of fake words and look for the coolest pictures. And you could be like, oh yeah, that's a flabber labber, you know?
Yep.
That's what they're like. They're cool. So yeah, might be some weird stuff like that. There's a lot of space to do.
Yeah, it's also quite interesting how the model interprets some things. For example, I remember when I first signed up, I did like the creation of the universe with chaos on, and it drew Adam and Eve, and it was like really weird. It was like Adam and Eve in the shape of clouds, and it was like a universe. Like it was really cool.
Yeah, let's definitely want to push the exploration element of MidJourney. So the future versions will be going to definitely encourage people as much as we can to like explore, and we'll even reward it potentially. So that's a big thing that we think about. Cool.
Also, I have like a massive data set of prompts, and I've been looking at some stats, and overwhelmingly, very low amount of people use chaos, and chaos prompts don't get onto the front page very often, which is kind of a shame because they're really cool in my opinion.
Yeah, I don't know. I think there's a lot of things that don't make it onto the front page right now. We're gonna try to do a better job there in the future with our algorithms.
Yeah. I think that's it.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you
I'll
for
wrap
having
up.
me again.
No problem. So I guess I'm gonna wrap up for today. I'm happy that we got through so many people. This has been great. Don't normally get through as many as this, so thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for being a part of this community, helping us like explore all the things there are to explore. I'm excited for everyone to help us explore the next things, and the next things, and the next things. Yeah, we'll do this every week. So I guess see everyone next week. Have a nice day.